because Justina's going to be next door. She's coming too as a general. So I know I'll happily sit there. But where's Francesca going to be? Oh, there you are. Oh, because you're speaking. You have.
And there's Margaret.
Margaret. Is that Margaret in the black?
Shall I talk to Miss?
All right. Oh well, I'll sit down so we can pull up here. I love it because you're just behind. Can I squeeze in?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Planning Applications Committee, Tuesday, 21st of October, 2025. We've got a very packed agenda. Thank you all for turning up. I will indicate in a minute the proposed running order, but it may shift slightly depending on whether the speakers are in time for the cases. Just to indicate who's up here, I'm Councillor Mackover, so I'm chairing this evening. On my left are the officers and legal team who will present the cases and advise us on any technical matters. On my right are my fellow councillors, and together my fellow councillors will make the decisions. As I mentioned, we do have a lot of speaker cases, and so I will be quite firm on maximum time limits, but I will be the same firmness to both sides. And if we do ask you questions for clarification for the councillors, then if you could be similarly prompt in your responses, that would be much appreciated. So just to look at first the standard agenda items. Any apologies for absence? I can't see any, so that's good. Any declarations of interest? Tim?
I will have to recuse myself on the case of Earls Court Road because I've been very vocal in my opposition on that one.
Thank you. You've got that, team. Thank you. Any other declarations? No, that's fine. Any minutes of previous meetings? Well, we have minutes that that I can see that I was in the chair. Councillor Aretti was also there. Can I take those minutes as approved? Okay, I'll just sign those. Thank you. And we will move on to the reports and cases themselves. The proposed running order, and I know a number of you, I think, are here for the Earls Court case, and that's going to be case number 4 at the moment. So the running order is 24 Russell Road, then Ladbroke Gardens, Cornwall Crescent, and then Earls Court, Bolton Gardens, Cathcart, Holland Park, Smith Terrace, Poulton Square, Radnor Walk, Lansdowne Road, Ladbroke Square, Markham Square, Cheney Walk. And most of those do have speakers, so bear with us as we work our way through. Right, so if we're ready to go, let's please start with 24 Russell Road.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I begin my presentation, I'd just like to draw members' attention to the printed pack. Councillors may note that the map provided within the pack relates to Russell Garden Mews. That's incorrect, and I think you've been re-provided with the correct map, which is 24 Russell Road. There is also, within the selection of drawings, a site location plan as well, but I think you should have that on your desk. In addition to this, I'd also like to draw members' attention to the addendum report, including an additional objection received. There's also been some changes to recommended condition 2 and some minor updates within the officer report. This references the legal agreement and whereabouts it's set out. So the application site relates to number 24 Russell Road, a mid-terrace residential building located on the eastern side of the highway. The site is not located within a conservation area. The red arrow on this slide shows the location of the property. The application before members this evening seeks planning permission for the addition of a mansard roof extension to provide a 2-bedroom residential property. Members can note from this image the roofscape of the terrace grouping, and as mentioned in the officer's report, there is an isolated example of a mansard extension at number 16, which I'll just show with my cursor here. The existing elevations of the front and the rear can be seen on this slide. The proposed elevations can be seen here. I would draw members' attention to the proposed mansard roof extension at the upper level. This slide just shows a zoomed-in version of the proposed mansard so that members can note some of those annotations. The proposed mansard would be constructed of traditional materials, including natural slate tiles, timber-framed sliding sash windows, and the dormers would be clad in lead. The proposed floor plans can be seen on this slide. Members can note the existing layout of flat 5 and flat 6 on this level here. This is where the existing stairs will be extended from second floor to third floor to provide access to the proposed new unit. The proposed floor plan for the flat is on the right. This shows the 2 bedrooms at the rear with an open plan living, kitchen and dining room. Lastly, this image has been taken from a view study provided by the applicant. Members can note the profile of the mansard extension and the views which could be achieved from the rear communal garden and the pavement on Russell Road. To conclude, the recommendation before members this evening is to grant planning permission subject to the completion of the legal agreement to secure permit-free parking and the recommended conditions as set out within the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear from the objectors, please? That's Philippa Perrott and Sandra Heidenstam. You just say, point where you are.
I'm here.
Thanks. Please go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Did you say 3 minutes?
Yes. So are you each speaking?
Okay, yes.
So you're doing half time each, are you?
Okay.
Well, yes, although we're different angles, but anyhow, okay,
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
Can I just say, have you got that to orientate yourselves, which is a gardener's plan, but it gives you north, south, east, west, and it's west and east which are the most important. Tell me when I start, please.
Yes, I thought you started. Sorry,
Right,
please go ahead.
No, sorry. Okay. I am the chair of the Holland and Russell Roads Garden Committee, and I want to talk to you about light and air and why the embargo on putting mansards on any more properties around this homogeneously designed green lung should have been stopped up to now, and the latest one to be stopped was stopped last year in 2024 on appeal, and the Secretary of State said it would ruin the maintained and very carefully calibrated and totally unique level of the parapet, which is actually the highest level of the building, so that is where it stops. The roof is hidden behind, and that would actually interrupt the light and air, and it would not only be a visual obstruction, but the actual damage it would do to the environment would not be outweighed by the benefit of a small amount of new residential property. Now, we've had this embargo on since 1980, at the end of 1980s, because we have 3 mansards, which were a terrible mistake, and they were put on when people didn't understand what this extraordinary little development is. It is, in fact, a green lung of London, and it's listed in the Green Places Act, or map rather, which is here, produced by the RIBA and the Ordnance Survey in 2007. And it is made really to act as an air cleanser for the entire area, not just the residents who live round the garden.
Just to say you have 1 minute remaining between
Right,
the two of you.
okay.
Okay, so do you want me to...
No, you have your time too.
No, I don't.
Is
It's
that
3
1
minutes
minute for-
between.
Is that 1 minute for my...
3 shared. So
So I have 1 minute left.
no, together you've got
Right,
1 minute.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this planning proposal goes against all previous design policy decisions which historically have reviewed building work that changes the roof line and overall character of the street. I believe this is the first time the Council have considered an application for a mansard in uninterrupted roof line, and this would set a precedent for all similar applications. Too much weight is being given to a minute increase in housing stock against the harm such a development will cause in terms of design, loss of light and architectural cohesion. Any building work at roof level, particularly houses with a valley or butterfly roof, of which this is one, has to be detrimental to the building's architecture, historic interest and roof line. As RBKC places an emphasis on heritage and conservation, any changes to these roofs, of which there are increasingly few, should be strongly resisted. The proposal states that this mansard will not be seen from street or garden level. However, there are no measurement details of roof height, parapet and chimneys. So this
we have now gone over the 3 minutes. It may be that there are questions that will allow you to bring some of those points out. Can we hear now, please, from the agent, Mr. Valler? Thank you. Please go ahead. And if the people who are not speaking could turn their microphones off, then the microphone will work for the person who's. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. We know that government policy is very clear to build, as there is a desperate need for more housing. There is a huge shortage. The other point, we have seen that the council is now well engaged with this policy, and notice that in some areas of the borough where previously mansards were not allowed, but now are being given the go-ahead. The terrace houses in Russell Road, most likely, were not all built at the same time. We have made some searches, and the 1850 plan shows that perhaps the first houses were up to number 22 currently. Which is from junction of Napier Road to the number 22 currently, as I said. Beyond this point, the map shows one large land owned by one landlord, which is number 86. The map shows one large land, yes. This land most likely was owned by one landlord or one family, hence a covenant 1865 for the particular 23, 20, up to 26. And no other house, as the covenant says, no other house or structure to be elected. The 1865 covenant referred to in certain objection has been most likely overtaken by the continuous changes on the road and the surrounding area. From the searches, we could not see the reasons for this covenant applied to the very few houses, except for the benefit of the individual persons named in the covenant. We could not see any different architectural or heritage merits to these named houses. The roof extension itself is a mansard, which respects the guidelines as set out by the council. Mansards are the best roof extension, as they clearly distinct from the original structure by form and materials, thus respecting the original historic fabric and visual. Just to note, Russell Road contains already many mansard roof extensions. We have provided a detail to show that the mansard has a negative or negligent effect on the loss of light to the gardens. The sun actually covers every part of the gardens while it is turning from the east, south, and west. And we have shown, as you have seen, it was displayed, the study, the view study, that there is no effect on the garden as such.
Thank you. You've also just reached 3 minutes, but thank you very much. But so what we'll do is we'll just ask my fellow councillors if you have any questions for either side. Councillor Oretti.
Thank you, Chair. Question to the objector, Mr. Waller. I know the area quite well. I used to live down the road. You just spoke about preserving the heritage and the character. This is a mid-terrace one. The only mansard roof that you have is on the edge, which is the end terrace, and the rest all, there's a, I think it's the Holland Gardens, and then you have the rest on the other side. Could you describe why a mid-terrace mansard roof would preserve the character when you build it, it will be uneven based on the fabric or the visuals?
Because the fact Once we start to build, others will come and make application and we'll start to rebuild, and that the terrace will be complete, like the other parts of Russell Road.
You mean, do you own all the properties so that everyone can build? Or?
Naturally, that will happen. And then the mansard.
Well, that's an assumption. I'm sorry. Just want to check if you own all the properties and you're happy to build it, then I agree with your statement. However, you don't own any of that properties.
But there are many examples in the borough where there are mansard, there are terraces with no mansard, and then you see one, and then you see second, and that's how it is.
Is that your final thing, that once you start building, the rest all would follow?
100%.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're now going to discuss those themes with officers. Who'd like to go? Councillor North.
Thank you, Chair. To the officers, just two brief questions, really. I'm just double-checking this doesn't form part of the conservation areas, question one. And question two is that one of the objectors mentioned that the word embargo. Is there any policy that does embargo this, or can I just double-check?
Thank you, Councillor. So in relation, to your first question, the site isn't within a conservation area. In relation to your second question, there is a policy within the local plan, which is policy CD12, which requires roof alterations and additional stories to be architecturally sympathetic to the age and character of the buildings. And this policy does look to resist mansard extensions or additional stories on groups of buildings where roof level alterations or additions are not the prevailing feature. So the officer's report has identified that conflict. However, due to the design and the form and the kind of traditional materials, its recessive form, officers have found that the overall impact would be acceptable. They've also weighed in, I think as mentioned this evening, the contribution to the borough's housing stock, and therefore in this instance we're recommending approval.
Councillor Retty.
Regarding the sunlight falling on to the gardens, was the assessment satisfactory, or is that not required because that's based on the material consideration?
So impact on living conditions, daylight and sunlight being part of that is a material consideration of your assessment and officers' assessments for this application. That is assessed in part 6.3 of the officer's report, where the officer has considered that due to the increased height by one additional storey, the proposals would not result in undue loss of sunlight or daylight or increased sense of enclosure, and that would be to the residential properties within the building and the terrace grouping itself, but the officers would have also had regard to any sense of enclosure to private gardens or communal gardens as well, which would take into account the gardens to the rear. So in summary, officers have considered it, but feel that the living conditions of neighbouring properties will be protected or preserved.
Thank you. Councillor Verboden.
Thank you. So, from my understanding, we're talking about just one additional flat to the housing stock for the borough, right? So, if we allow this planning application to go through, wouldn't we set precedent for the rest of the row, then to also allow similar extensions, and would that not mean encroachment to the rest?
So each application or each planning application would need to be considered in light of its individual planning merits. It may be that other mansards on this terrace wouldn't be acceptable, potentially due to a different design or a different approach. I think members need to review the design and the impact of this application and come to a conclusion on its acceptability itself.
But could this mansard then be used as a precedent for others later on?
So it could disrupt some of the roofscape and the roof form of that terrace grouping, which obviously could allow for mansards. And the policy CD12 does talk about supporting additional stories where it would allow for a cohesive design or reunite the group. So that is a possibility.
Okay. Sorry, just following on to Councillor Verboden's, they're not against preserving the character of the design of the road
Yeah, so in terms of its impact on the character and appearance of the terrace grouping, the officer has come to the conclusion that due to its recessive form, suitable detailed design, the works would read as an architecturally sympathetic extension and would therefore complement the character and appearance of the terrace grouping.
Thank you. And I note it is a traditional design and it's been brought more in line through the application process. Okay, I think it's time to move to a decision on this. Unless there are any final points, officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour, please? Can I see those against? Okay, 24 Russell Road is granted. 3 to 2, yep. Thank you. Let's keep with the order and move to 11 Ladbroke Gardens, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, again, I'd like to draw members' attention to the addendum report, the additional representation received from the Ladbroke Association, and the amendments to the recommended conditions. There's also been a written letter provided by the agent as part of your pack, just because they couldn't be here this evening to read out their speech. The application site relates to flat 2 of 11 Ladbroke Gardens. The property is Grade 2 listed and located within the Ladbroke Conservation Area. To the rear of the site is the Grade 2 listed garden. Members can note the site location with the red arrow on the slide before you. This application seeks planning permission and listed building consent for the addition of a rear extension, which would be located at lower ground and basement level, and the associated internal and external amendments. Members will need to consider and vote on the recommendation presented for the application of planning permission and listed building consent separately. As this application has been applied for as a joint application, the objections received on the listed building consent require the applications to be presented to members this evening. Photos from the existing front and the existing rear elevation can be seen on this slide. The existing and proposed block plan can be seen here. I would draw members' attention to the extension or the proposed extension at the lower ground floor, which will extend the kitchen area in this level, or in this location, sorry, here. There will also be some changes, as noted within the report, to the garden, including the addition of a paved terrace, steps, and the addition of a paved area, which will be lower than the existing levels at present. The existing basement plan can be seen here. I would note the areas for demolition, including the section of the rear garden, which will be lowered. There will also be some demolition to the front light well in the front yard, which can be seen with my cursor here. This existing floor is used for residential accommodation, including 2 bedrooms. The proposed basement plan can be seen on this slide. The proposed extension at this level would provide a dressing room and a bedroom, and the extension would project full width and 3 metres at this level. Again, just with my cursor drawing members' attention to the extension and the alterations to the garden area. The existing lower ground floor level can be seen on this slide. I would draw members' attention to the proposed demolition within the rear garden area, which includes this wall. The proposed lower ground floor level can be seen on this slide. This includes the proposed extension to enlarge the kitchen. That would project 3 metres and would measure approximately half the width of the property. The existing rear elevation and the proposed rear elevation can be seen on this slide. I would draw members' attention to the location of the extension at basement level and then at lower ground floor level in these locations with my cursor. I would also draw members' attention to the glass balustrade here, which can be seen here with my cursor. Recommended condition 8 removes this from the permission, and recommended condition 9 requires details of the balcony to be provided, and this states that the balcony railings should be black painted traditional metal railings. The existing and proposed front elevation can be seen on this slide, where there will be the insertion of that light well and the new window below. Lastly, just to talk through the sections, so the existing section can be seen here. Again, I would draw members' attention to the level of the garden here. And this is the proposed section. Members can note the lowering of the garden, the addition of the balustrade and the extension at basement level and at lower ground floor level there. That concludes my presentation. The recommendation before members this evening is to grant both planning permission and listed building consent, subject to the recommended conditions set out within this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we hear, please, from the objectors, Sophia Lambert and Anna Lloyd?
I'm Anna Lloyd. I've lived on Arundel and Ladbroke Gardens since 1990, and I'm speaking with the support of other residents. It's a very beautiful and unusual listed woodland garden to which the houses on either side have direct access. It's been depressing to watch the gradual erosion of the historic design of the backs of the houses on both sides. Many modern extensions and insensitive alterations have been allowed and have diminished the cohesion of the Victorian architecture and the rural delight of the landscape. The private gardens and communal garden were designed as one. The latest development which has been completed at number 7 Ladbroke Gardens was finished this year, and the singularly modern garden and extension have more in common with the Mediterranean than really a garden in central London. Number 11 is also listed and is in a more prominent position overlooking the centre lawn and will be highly visible to other houses and residents enjoying the communal garden. The terrace is built on a steep hill, so the lower ground on the street side actually becomes raised ground on the garden side. An extension with a roof will look out of place in this open position where none of the houses have modern additions. The ground will be lowered and the garden flattened so that the basement patio doors will also be visible. So this is the same as at number 7, which you can see if you've got photographs of that. The charming woodland steps will be demolished, and it's worth knowing that all the extensions on Ladbroke Gardens are concentrated down one end of the terrace towards Ladbroke Grove. Here in the centre of the garden, the original architecture is intact, right down to Kensington Park Road, so the majority of the terrace. We would welcome the idea that the special historical significance of this listed communal garden is considered more carefully by the council. It's a magical place to live and worthy of preservation.
Right, if I could just add, not that I have much to add to the last objection we put in. First of all, I noted that this is very much an on-balance recommendation from the officers. So it's clear that they themselves weren't too certain that this was the right course to take. We are worried about the constant erosion of this listed terrace, the backs of which are not follow a pattern. And increasingly, we're having strange, peculiar things added to them, like in this case, a slate roof. A slate roof does not belong on the back of a listed terrace where there are no other slate roofs. So we very much hope that we're not against the basement extension. We accept that that's a perfectly reasonable desire to have a basement extension, and others have it, but not in the highly visible raised lower ground floor.
Thank you. Spot on time. Right, there are, the agent or applicant is not speaking, and so we're straight on to questions from councillors. If there are any questions. Yes, Councillor Hargreaves.
Ms Lambert, who I know is very experienced in these matters, we have a planning application before us tonight, and I understand a bit about constant erosion of different applications. In terms of this application, which is all we can, as you know, all we can look at tonight, how would you position that in terms of to help us make a decision that we can't really look at sort of constant erosion? We just have to look at this application. Is there anything you could help us with on that?
Well, I mean, you know, it is It is on it will be on its own. It'll stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, I know it's not supposed to come out that far, but it's right in the middle. I mean, it's like on a stage, because the garden is on a hill, and you look up, and there you will see this thing overlooking the centre of the garden on its own. None of the houses around it they haven't been converted to modern extensions. So it'll look completely odd, I think, especially the sort of weird-looking sort of cookhouse affair with this sort of slate roof. It's not lower ground. It is very much raised ground that you look up to it. The garden as well is going to be reduced and flattened. I mean, they're all on a hill with these lovely little curved woodland steps. Such a shame to lose them. They're original 19th century steps. All that, to me, is a great loss, and will be very, very obvious.
Councillor Retty.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's not clear on the pics. Just want to understand the boundary edges of the gardens. Do you have more trees? And you said raised ground floor. How, roughly about from the ground level, how tall is it, in terms of meters?
I think maybe there are pictures that have been sent in.
But no, I can't. It's not. I know it.
You've got photographs in your dossier, I think, of the...
Yes, but it's not clear with
and
the
also you can see
boundaries.
what it looks like from the centre lawn in a sort of wide angle and then a closer shot as well. So it is sort of really quite high up, and because the garden's on a slope, it's even more obvious. I sent in pictures.
It's not clear. No. All right. Anyway, thank you.
The elevation drawings show it quite clear.
I think you need a photograph, really.
No, the back. Yeah. Yes.
Look, we'll definitely thank you. I think we've got the point, which is going to look. We'll look at the elevation drawings, and we'll just talk through this with officers, because it is an important point for us to consider. In fact, maybe we can go to officers now. Let's start with this point, which is just looking at the garden levels and the points that have been made. How did officers come to the balance on that?
Of course. Thank you, Chairman. So just to re-go through some of the plans which I presented earlier. So there is going to be a lowering of the land level within the rear garden. So that is apparent perhaps if we first look at the block plan. So you can see in this area here, it will be lowered, and there is that annotation to say paved garden at lower level than the existing. So when we look at it from section, and I'll come back to the elevations, this is the existing garden level here from the rear elevation. So this is the existing, what's been called the basement level. This is the existing lower ground floor level, which are the areas where the extension will be sited. So when we look at the proposed section, you can see here that this will then be the new, this line here actually, sorry, will then be the new garden level. So it is going to be reduced in depth. And then members can note the 3-metre projection of the dressing room extension, which is full width at lower ground floor.
Sorry to interrupt. Just as a point that does come up, because we've had a lot of garden height changes in listed buildings on things. Is there a policy which specifically prevents garden heights from changing? That's one of the things that the objectors are concerned about, but I'm not aware that we have control over that in the same way as a building.
Yeah, there's not a particular policy which references resisting the lowering of gardens. Obviously, members will need to give consideration to any impact in land level changes to the setting of that listed building. It's also a consideration when looking at at flooding and drainage and any impact that lowering of that garden or removal of the soil will have as well. But there isn't a specific policy which resists it. It forms part of your consideration to the impact to the setting of that listed building, the setting of the communal garden and the conservation area.
Councillors, any questions? Well, I think I've got one, which is on the on the drawings that shows balconies and sort of glass balustrades, I should say. And I want to just get clarity on that, because I know in the objections of the Society of Ladbroke Association, they were concerned, why is that material being introduced? So are there any balustrades at all or now proposed? Just be clear on that.
Of course, so it's probably best to show you it from the rear elevation. So you've got the existing on the left and the proposed on the right. So members can note, hopefully with my cursor, the location of a glass balustrade in this area here. So that would be from the basement level, the steps up to the lower ground floor level, and would also provide access into the new extension, which is that enlarged kitchen. Officers have noted the glass balustrade, and it's not considered to be appropriate due to the significance of the listed building, the conservation area and the views of it. So recommended condition 8 removes it, so it doesn't benefit from planning permission or listed building consent. And then recommended condition 9 requires alternative details. Among other things, part of it is for the balustrade to be provided, and the officer has specifically referenced for that to be traditional vertical black painted metal railings.
Thank you. Councillor Hargreaves.
So I'm struggling with this, to be honest, because I don't like the design of the garden. It's out of character with the area, but I can't find a policy that would allow me to sort of vote against it. I know these garden squares very well. They're stunning, they're beautiful, and they do need preserving in look and character. But I'm struggling to find a policy here that's going to enable me to vote against it. And as we heard on, this is very much an unbalanced thing. Am I missing something? Please.
Thank you, Councillor. So I think it's important to note that the officer has identified a level of harm within the overall assessment. However, they have outweighed that harm by the public benefit. So if I just draw your attention to paragraph 6.5 and 6.6, so it talks about the harm being balanced out by the efficient use of space, creating sustainable living conditions, and bringing the building up to provide an enhanced living condition at that basement level. So that's the assessment and the balancing exercise which members need to do this evening. It may be that you reach a different conclusion.
And I can see in 6.5 actually on that is the view given that from topography and screening and set back position, the extension won't be visible. And then it goes on to say the lowering of the ground level creates the better connection. So it's actually when we're not presented from officers with an opinion that there will be significant harm to the setting by this change. It's not the whole garden; it's part of it. Okay.
Yeah, correct. It's not substantial harm that's been identified. If there is harm, it would be less than substantial.
Okay, Councillor North, and then we'll move to decision.
Just to briefly, because I think Councillor Hargreaves has summed up my feelings on this one as well. And I noticed that in 6.4, 6.5 and 6.6, when it talks about the heritage. One of the points that's raised is about the water ingress issue. Presumably there are other ways to address this without the perceived harm to the heritage.
Thank you. So, yeah, the water leaks, and I think as mentioned in the report, talks about the retaining wall in the garden that needs to be investigated, and they have provided a structural engineer report to demonstrate that. I'm not aware if there are alternative ways. It may be that there's an alternative way to deal with the water damages, but unfortunately I wouldn't be able to say at this time.
Thank you. Okay. Are members ready to move to a vote on this? The officer, we'll move to, this is the planning consent, and then we'll do the listed building next. For the planning application, officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? Those against? Right. Do you want to talk about your reasons, and then we'll do a proposal to, yeah. And you're abstaining, okay, yeah.
Chair, if I may, I'm particularly convinced by the objector's argument on the overall harm to the heritage aspect of this development. That's not to say that a future revised scheme could be acceptable to the committee, but personally that's my main issue, and it was an unbalanced decision.
And Mr. Chairman, I think I would go with that. It's a difficult decision, but I do think it's visually and architecturally, it's not in keeping with this area. And I accept that there are some things that you can balance off, but actually the things that you balance off don't change the visuals to me.
Okay. Do officers have the wording that you need for this?
Yeah, just so I think what I'm understanding from the conversations we've had this evening, it's the visual impact from the rear of the property, so from the rear garden, the listed garden to the back as well. So visually, is it the lower ground floor? If I just perhaps put is it this element here, which has been noted within the officer's report, is going to be more visible from the garden, or is it the combination of the lower ground floor, the basement, sorry, and the lower ground floor?
Because it's the whole visual impact in its entirety. Yes.
Okay, and so less than substantial harm, not outweighed by the public benefits.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so would someone like to propose a motion? Councillor North will propose. So who would second? Councillor Hargreaves. Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you saying, were you asking for a proposer and a seconder?
Yeah.
And who proposed?
Councillor North and Councillor Hargreaves seconded. So the proposal, the motion is to refuse on the grounds of the reasons set out to officers. Those in favour of the refusal, please show. Those against refusal. So that refusal is carried. And now listed building consent. For listed building consent, the officer recommendation is to grant. Those in favour, you know this way this is going. Those against? Okay. So the reasons for refusal, anything different from councillors? No different. So we'll now take, who would like to propose? Yeah.
Sorry. We're on the listed building one.
Mm-hmm.
Can we have the same reasons as for the planning commission? It's talking about visual impact. This is about the listed building itself.
In respect to the listed building only, not conservation area, but yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. It's the same second.
Propose the same seconder. So with that, the motion is to refuse listed building consent for the reasons proposed. And I see those in favour of refusing and those against refusing. So that is carried as a refusal in the same way. So both of those are refused. Okay. I'm actually proposing, given the number of people here, and I don't know whether it would work for officers to move to Earls Court Road now. Is that going to be possible? I think all the speakers are here for it. Okay. So just because I think the number of people here for Earls Court Road and the timing, we will now look at that case. So ground floor 153 Earls Court Road, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So this item relates to ground floor 153 Earls Court Road. This is a planning application which is sought to achieve 24-hour opening through the removal of an extant condition limiting open hours to between 8 and 11:30 Sunday to Thursday and 8 to midnight Friday and Saturday. Just to note, this is not an application for the creation of a new adult gaming business. The business use was approved in January 2022, under which the condition limiting open hours was imposed. Members' attention should also be drawn to the addendum pack before you, which includes 42 additional representations that have been received. So 153 Earls Court Road is a mid-terrace property on the eastern side of the street. The host property is on the ground floor and is in sui generis use, as approved by the consent in 2022. There are an additional 3 levels of residential accommodation above. The proposal to enable the existing adult gaming centre to operate 24 hours a day is recommended to you for approval. However, it is recommended that the 24-hour use is granted for a period of 12 months, after which the premises open hours would revert back to the existing as per the current condition for the reasons set out in the report. Here we have some images of the site. The property is in the Earls Court Road District Centre, a category of town centre that is identified as providing convenience goods and services for more local communities. Here before members, I've included the existing condition on the approved consent and the proposed condition. It should be noted as well, members will see from the report that the use of the business has not attracted complaint in the past, and it is considered that there would be no negative impact on amenity. The use of the recommended planning condition to grant the 24-hour operation for a limited time would be in accordance with policy. One of the biggest concerns is that the gambling uses would attract antisocial behaviour and are a temptation to vulnerable people. It's confirmed again in the report by the police licensing officer that there have been no complaints of antisocial behaviour originating from the use of any gambling establishments that exist on Earls Court Road. Therefore, the proposal would likely ensure good living conditions and that they would continue for neighbouring occupants, and it's recommended that condition 3 of the parent approval is amended to allow the premises to open for 24 hours a day for a limited period of 12 months. The proposal is considered to preserve the existing attractiveness and vitality of the town centre. It would not have a significant impact on local infrastructure. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the amendment of the condition to allow the 24-hour use for a temporary period of 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. For objectors, we have Councillor Wade speaking, and you have 2 minutes, and then Kieran Terry and Francesco Zibolini, who have together 3 minutes. Who would like to go first? I'm sure you've worked out exactly how you're going to split the time up.
I'll try. All right.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you.
This is a time that the council should place residents first. These business operators do not live here, so are unaffected by the consequence of their business. The mission of the council is to act and protect its residents. Your decision-making should clearly demonstrate that you've listened to residents, and this is at a time when the council should say no. The extension of hours of this AGC premises will fail to reflect the changed character of Earls Court, caused by the increase of 24/7 culture and the consequent growing residential resistance to that culture, one where they feel fearful and intimidated in their own neighbourhood. Planning and licensing have key roles in improving the area, and in their decision-making this evening could start the reverse of the decline of Earls Court Road. With the change of resident behaviour, footfall has fallen, and as a result, the street feels less safe, with less residents wanting to walk in the area late at night. The High Street has become a late-night destination, and we do have congregation of individuals around the exterior, and I spoke to a person who lived above. The Safer Neighbourhood team, the street enforcement team, finish at 11 o'clock. In the police stats, Earls Court Ward has an increase in ASB with some of the highest numbers recorded in the borough. This application runs contrary to improvement. No number of conditions are going to satisfy residents, as conditions are largely not enforced and therefore discredited. I would ask that the committee turn this application down.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask you to cut me off at a minute and a half, please? So can I thank Councillor Wade for her comments, and can I also thank Councillor Durian for his written comments that submitted to the committee. I'm a local resident. My grounds for objection are as follows. Firstly, I'm deeply concerned about the cumulative impact of multiple 24-hour casinos in the area. Contrary to the officer's report that no further adult gaming centres would be approved, they can't guarantee this, and what's more, an existing casino is being used as justification for this one. There is a further open planning application for a third super casino a few doors down from this site. This will deeply damage the retail mix on what was already a struggling high street. Secondly, with respect to noise, myself and a number of other residents visited the existing 24-hour casino at 1 a.m. a few weeks ago. We witnessed noise, loitering and gathering at this time from people smoking outside, taking a break from a hard evening's gambling. The cumulative effect of multiple 24-hour casinos will create an unacceptable amount of noise into the night. In terms of noise, the report notes there aren't complaints about the existing site. I'd mention just because you don't have objections about this place at 10 p.m, it's very different to having multiple casinos at 3 a.m. 240 objectors cannot be wrong. Thirdly, there's a very high concentration of hostels in the local area, housing vulnerable people with a diverse mix of needs, including a range of addiction issues. This doesn't create a supportive environment for the large number of people the council's housing locally with very complex needs. You have a duty to them. Planning have not consulted about social care, and there's no reference in the report or in the applicant's information. Lastly, this condition was added in 2022 to alleviate residents' concerns about antisocial behaviour. There's been a major change locally since the original application.
Sorry, 1 minute 30 as you asked. Yeah.
Thank you. Just quickly, there's a new PSPO in the area to combat a large flare-up in ASB weighing against the application. I'll pass over. Thank you.
My name is Francesco Zibellini. I'm the chair of the Earth Core Society, an umbrella residents association that in this case represents 922 residents from 9 RAs. This application seems to be supported by policy T4 of the 2024 local plan, which says that the evening economy should be supported when it helps to diversify and enhance the borough without causing a negative impact on the nearby residential amenity. Yet this proposal fails on 3 counts. It doesn't diversify because the business already exists. It doesn't enhance the area, quite the opposite. And third, it actually has a negative impact. Your own report says in section 624, the extension of opening hours does not significantly increase the perceived harms to the borough in terms of degrading it, creating a poor impression for visitors, etc. But not significantly means it does cause some harm. And in this area, there are centers for people with addictions nearby. And in section 611, I quote, the submitted assessment does comment on the likely noise impact of customers and the impact is predicted to be low. But low still means some impact. Earth's Court has shops and homes in very close proximity, and its residents do not want any increase in noise, disturbance or degradation, not even by a tiny bit, because it's with all these tiny bits that an area slowly changes, and in 10 years it will look like a mini Las Vegas. We support a thriving local economy for sure, but not this house extension. We are 922 residents firmly saying no to this application, so please don't ignore us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can Caitlin Attrell and Jerry Wilcox please show me where you are? Okay, thank you. And you will have 5 minutes and 10 seconds if you need to, just to make sure everything's completely balanced in time terms. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I am the agent on this application. So this application should be determined in accordance with local plan policy, and the decision should be based on the evidence presented and not on supposition. The noise impact assessment submitted with this application demonstrates that the 24-hour use will result in no discernible loss of amenity to the occupiers of adjacent or nearby residences. Customer surveys undertaken by Luxury Leisure indicate that visitor numbers to the adult gaming centre during the nighttime period will be low. The Environmental Health Officer and Designing Out Crime Officer have raised no objection to the 24-hour use and have not challenged the technical evidence submitted with this application. This unit has been in operation as an adult gaming centre for over 2.5 years and no issues have been flagged to the council to date. There is no reason why the 24-hour operation will change this. Additionally, there is another AGC within close proximity of the site which has operated on a 24-hour basis for a number of years, also with no issues raised to the council to date. This Section 73 application does not focus on the principle of adult gaming centre use at the site. This was established over 2 years ago. It focuses on the 24-hour operation of the site, which we have demonstrated is fully policy compliant through the unchallenged technical evidence presented. I will now pass over to Jerry Wilcox from Luxury Leisure, who will discuss the responsible operations of the company. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jerry Wilcox. Thank you very much for listening to me tonight. I'm Regional Manager at Luxury Leisure for 37 venues and 411 staff across London and Berkshire, including our Earls Court venue, and I've worked in the gaming industry since 1987. Luxury Leisure are the largest AGC operator in the UK with 287 venues, and we're proud of being a national and a local employer. We offer a low-stake, supervised, friendly environment to our customer base, which is 60-40 male-female and has an average age of 45. All of our colleagues are Think 25 trained, and we have a 95% pass rate on external testing, which is the highest in the land-based gaming sector. We do not serve alcohol, nor do we allow it to be drunk outside our premises. We've never had a licence revoked, and we've not had any complaints regarding our operation at Earls Court in the 2.5 years it's been open. 60% of Luxury Leisure's AGCs currently operate 24/7, including 47 of our 56 Greater London venues. The business is moving towards a greater 24/7 operation, responding to customer demands. And we have a top-heavy field management structure, including night area managers, all of whom visit all of our venues regularly. We're totally focused on safer gambling, and our staff are trained accordingly. Our team members are not even allowed onto the venue floor before completing social responsibility modules. We place a lot of importance on security policies, and we have a remote security team who are able to converse with our venue colleagues and view our CCTV live, both inside and outside the venue, at the touch of a wearable button. We have a magnetically locked front door for controlled entry, and a breadth and depth of colleague training that focuses on our customers and our location. And we have a local risk assessment which helps us make informed decisions. We are members of the WalkSafe personal safety scheme, and we have a defibrillator on our premises, which is visible on mycommunitydefib.co.uk. Both would be available 24/7 were we open 24/7. An opening overnight would add 4 additional local jobs. We've applied for a temporary 12-month planning in other locations, particularly in Bexley Heath and Manchester, for example, and these temporary periods have been successful in demonstrating no adverse impact arising from the 24/7 operation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Right, questions from Councillors. Councillor Oretti first.
Thank you, Chair. Question to the applicant. Thank you for your presentation on your company and its operations. Just wanted to check, could you just briefly explain your rationale, logic, and intention to have a 12-month period? Is that why? I mean, is there any specific reason? Only for 12 months?
The 12-month period is a demonstration by Luxury Leisure that they are willing to work with the council to come to an almost halfway house, and it seeks to demonstrate that there will be no objections or concerns raised to the council within that first 12 months to the 24-hour operation. As Jerry said, this has been successful in other locations around the country, and we believe that it is the correct approach to progressing a 24-hour use.
Could I ask the applicant, you mentioned that your customer demand was for 24-hour gambling. Why are your customers demanding to gamble 24 hours? What is it about something happening at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning that would seek someone to make a journey to a very densely populated residential area to start gambling when they could do it, if they needed to, online? Just seems a curious demand.
Thank you, Chairman. On the basis of the operation of other 24-hour Luxury Leisure sites across England, it is typically envisaged that the customers during the nighttime period will be those who are working shifts, so people who do not work the typical daytime patterns, and considering the urban commercial nature of this unit, I think that the similar logic could apply here.
And how will they arrive there, given that the tubes don't work at that time?
Considering it is sort of a commercial and residential mixed-use area, it is envisaged that a number of customers will arrive on foot. There are also other alternative options of transport available throughout the night, including bicycle, and I believe some night buses run during the week as well.
Other questions from councillors? Councillor Lloyd? No? Yep.
Thank you. A question to the applicant first. You mentioned that you are a local employer and employ a large number of people in the local area. Can I just ask if any of your employees live in the Earls Court vicinity, and if so, do they have families?
I don't know the addresses of my employees at this time, but as I said before, we have a large number of venues within London, all of whom employ people who live in London.
Thank you. And just one question, if I may, to the objectors, if I could ask one of the residents, Mr. Terry. Bearing in mind that since the original application was made, there is now a PSPO order in Earls Court, do you think that this application, even though it is on a limited time, would add to the cumulative impact on the harm in the area?
I absolutely believe it would. And just to kind of, just to build on that, I mean, let's be honest, if the applicant is saying there's going to be so little demand, then why are they applying for this? Let's be honest, there will be a lot of noise, a lot of people coming and going, and this will really exacerbate the noise and issues we have locally. This will be a real problem for local residents. And, you know, as you say, the council has worked hard with the councillors to actually put in this PSPO to alleviate some of the concerns we have about antisocial behaviour that happens day and especially at night. So, yes, I do think this would cause a massive flare-up of those problems.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move to questions to officers, and then we'll move to take a vote on it. Who would like to lead on questions to officers? Councillor North.
Thank you. Just a brief question. It's been mentioned about the number of complaints. Can I just clarify what the council would mean as a complaint is one registered through the official systems rather than those reported to the local residents association or the local council? I wonder if you can just clarify that for public record.
Thank you for your question. I mean, we have... I'm just having a quick look through the report to find... Yeah, I mean, we've just confirmed there are no complaints about the existing use. That would be to our environmental health officers.
We're right here complaining about the existing use.
So that's just, sorry, when the applicants say that there has been no complaints and the council saying there's no complaints, that's only complaints registered through environmental health, not registered in other means. Just to clarify that point.
I guess so, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hargreaves.
Pick up, please, on the 12-month trial. What's the rationale behind that, and why... Once you put something in place, it's very difficult to remove it. So what's the rationale of the 12 months? It's either going to work or it's not going to work.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor, and I agree. I think officers have quite clearly sort of set out in the report kind of the reasoning behind it. Obviously, after this period of 12 months, the original restrictions would come back into effect. I think the officers concluded, because of the issues around kind of noise and obviously the other issues around disturbance that are mentioned throughout the report, particular note paragraph 6.10 to 6.14, because we cannot definitely conclude the limited time seems reasonable, essentially to allow this premises to operate for an additional 8 hours. And I think, yeah, we've essentially come to the conclusion that the increase in the hours still complies with the policy and wouldn't have a greater impact than the hours operation through the daytime.
Thank you. Look, I'm I'm not sure whether this is a question, but a reflection, is that if the local residents were not concerned about the area where they live in, a cumulative impact, antisocial behaviour, we've heard reference to fear and intimidation, a decline in footfall on the street, then we wouldn't get 250 well-argued letters and some well-made cases tonight coming forward. So we're taking that as an indication of the great concern of the community, and that's what we as councillors add to the understanding. Secondly, we've had policy T24, which I think is called the evening economy, referred to in the report. There's no address, as far as I can see in the report, of what happens when you double or triple or quadruple the amount of overnight activity and why that would be supporting just the evening economy. So I'm not convinced that I would come to the same conclusion as officers on the meaning of that policy. And it does refer to a conclusion in the report that it says the officers think there would be no cumulative impact from first of all going 24-hour and secondly increasing by double or triple the number of people who are drawn to this attraction. And that also concerns me. So I don't know whether this is something that other members share or want to add to in the questions. Councillor Retty.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In addition to what you said, the licensing enforcement clearly stated, I mean, you can get it on the screen. There's a new home shelter near Cromwell Road which could add up to this antisocial behaviour. So I think it would be in addition to what you've just explained.
Okay. Unless officers want to add anything to what we're saying, are we ready to express our opinions? Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour of granting? Can I see those against? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that's that. We've got a bit of business now. Is to do our reasons for refusal. I think we've expressed a number of them. What have officers picked up? Comprehensive, cogent reasons that you can read back to us?
We probably would suggest that the proposed extension of the hours of operation would result in increased comings and goings throughout the night and increased noise disturbance, harmful to living conditions to those living nearby, contrary to policies CD9 and GB8 of the local plan.
And we're not mentioning cumulative impact. I think we said that. And I think we also said that sort of the risks to the area are made additional by all of this activity. So it's not just the activity itself. It's the area is particularly vulnerable to this sort of impact, and we wanted to make sure that's expressed as well. So with those reasons, yeah.
It's going to be challenging to defend an appeal without evidence, but if I understand what the committee are saying. I said it's going to be challenging to defend an appeal without evidence, but we can include the cumulative impact.
We've got quite a bit of evidence from the letters that have come in, and that's what we're using as well. Right. Who would like to propose a motion for refusal? Yeah, Gerard. Yeah. So, in addition to what Emma read out, is there anything else that, for reasons for refusal that officers have gathered?
No, we'll leave it to the one and we'll add reference to cumulative impact in that reason for refusal. If you're happy to delegate final wording to officers. Yep.
We'll delegate final wording, but we're including cumulative impact. Okay, yeah. All right, so proposed for the recommendation to refuse, the proposer is Councillor Hargreaves, seconded by Councillor North. Those in favour of, for the reasons given, the recommendation to refuse, please show. So that is now the paperwork done for this application to vary to be refused. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, everyone, for waiting. We'll just allow you to clear the room so we can You're welcome to stay, obviously. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Now returning to the running order, 77 Cornwall Crescent.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I would draw members' attention to the addendum report. We have received an additional objection from the Ladbroke Association, and there's also an amendment to paragraph 4.4, which relates to the date in which the officers visited the site. The application relates to the first and second floor flat within 77 Cornwall Crescent. The building can be seen identified by the red arrow on the slide before you. The application site is located within the Ladbroke Conservation Area. Planning permission is sought for the installation of a cast iron rear balcony at first floor level and the replacement of a window with a door, the installation of a portico porch to match some of the existing samples on the street scene. Just to go through the floor plans first, this is the proposed floor plan at ground and at first floor level. Members can note the location of the new balcony circled by the red. And the image on the left is a closer zoomed in image of the proposed floor plan, which shows that the balcony would project 800 millimetres or 0.8 metres from the rear and would span the full width. In terms of elevations, this is the existing and the proposed rear elevation, and I've also included a proposed view, which has been labelled as View 1, which has been provided as part of the application pack. So members can note the new balcony in this location here, and the alteration from the sash window to the door to allow for access onto the balcony. Again, this is a CGI image provided by the applicant on the left-hand image. This shows the proposed balcony and the new door. I also thought it was helpful to provide this photograph, which has been taken from the lower levels of the existing building. This shows the existing balcony located at the flat below, and members can note the materials and form of that balcony. That concludes my presentation. The officer recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the recommended conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia Lambert and Robin Kent, please, for the objectors.
The original Victorian houses on Blenheim Crescent overlooking 77 Cornwall Crescent were totally rebuilt in the 1980s. Only the original facade remained and significantly extended at the back, including a few tiny third-floor balconies. A balcony attached to a newly built house does not, in my view, constitute a precedent when considering an addition to a Victorian building in a conservation area. My understanding is that each planning application is treated on its own merits. Additionally, the applicants have twice claimed incorrectly that number 77 is outside the CA boundary, even after it had been pointed out that this was untrue. The proposed balcony at 77 Cornwall Crescent, first floor level, will cause an unacceptable loss of my privacy below at raised ground floor and basement levels. Located directly over my glazed lounge doors, it will lead to an unacceptable loss of the extremely limited daylight sunlight, both to the sitting room and bedroom beneath. It will also harm my reasonable enjoyment of my currently tranquil private garden, providing a viewing platform where individuals could see into the majority of my garden. My light is already limited thanks to the creation of both a fifth floor story to the extension in the 1980s and a new fifth floor added to the main house in 2013 with an enlarged new roof terrace above, granted on condition it would not overlook my privately owned garden. The upstairs flat's reception room has the benefit of two front-facing windows, providing significantly more light than my single front window. Further reducing light entering from the back would therefore be highly detrimental. I note that paragraph 6.6 of the planner's own report comments, the addition of this balcony is ultimately an extravagance, given the existing terrace at roof level of this property. It would further enhance 77's existing outdoor space while impinging on mine immediately below. A balcony at first floor level will provide a second outdoor space for the upper flat, while reducing my light, my privacy, and allowing it to be overlooked by my upstairs neighbours and any potential Airbnb visitors. Given my limited mobility, quiet enjoyment of my garden is key to my well-being. The proposed...
You better skip to the end because you're getting...
The proposed cast iron pole...
You're coming to the last 5 seconds if you want to sum up, please.
Okay. I'm just...
Last paragraph.
Last paragraph, I'm in the last paragraph. The proposed cast iron floor will amplify noise from the open French windows and proposed balcony loos, allowing liquids from watering flower pots to drop onto my walkway and patio below. If the committee is minded to accept this application, could the iron grille be replaced by a toughened glass floor? Also, could a condition prohibiting the placing of any mat overlay covering the balcony floor further reduce my light?
Okay.
Be applied.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, and can we hear, please, from Faris Kalala, the agent?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so this statement responds to the objection submitted by Ian MacDonald, the architect for Miss Robin Kent. It also aims to support the case officer by addressing the concerns raised and clarifying the factual background from the applicant's perspective. Item 6 also responds to an additional objection submitted by Sophia Lambert on 20th October. So item 1, impact of natural light. Natural light levels will not be diminished by this proposal for the following reasons. Firstly, the orientation of the building. The rear elevation of 77 Cornwall Crescent faces southeast and receives natural light mainly in the summer. A sun path analysis from 21st of June shows that around 9 a.m., low sun angles and the opposing Blenheim Crescent terrace block direct light. The proposed 800mm balcony will not affect this condition. Secondly, the overgrown nature of the garden. One of the main factors contributing to the limited natural light at 77A is the overgrown nature of the existing garden. The dense foliage, particularly from mature trees, reduces light reaching the property. There is, in fact, an opportunity to improve conditions. Sorry, this keeps going out. Can you turn your mic off?
Yes, I can see. Sophia, could you ask Ms. Kent to turn the mic off? Thank you. Well done.
Thank you. Okay, that's better. There is, in fact, an opportunity to improve current conditions through some light pruning and maintenance of the garden's trees and planting. In response to pre-application feedback, the client has reduced the proposed balcony projection from 2 meters to just 800mm, matching the balcony below at 77A, offering a thoughtful compromise. Item 2, noise and loss of privacy. Contrary to the objection, the balcony is not proposed for the sole benefit of a pet. The dog attends daycare 4 days per week and is walked at Avondale Park nearby for further relief. There is no evidence to suggest that the proposed balcony would cause an unacceptable level of noise or disturbance, especially given that there are existing examples of balconies opposite at the same height. Item 3, availability of alternative amenity space. The existing outdoor space sits 2 floors above the main living area, accessed by a steep staircase and in poor condition. The client seeks a more practical amenity directly connected to the living space, a reasonable request, especially given similar examples opposite. Item 4, structural and neighbouring impact. There are several structural approaches available to address Ian MacDonald's concerns, the architect of Ms. Robin Kent, which will be developed with a qualified structural engineer and building control inspector. Item 5, community considerations. Since purchasing the property, the applicant has undertaken essential repairs to the roof and plumbing of the building, works that have benefited Ms. Kent by addressing potential water ingress risks. It is regrettable that some of these actions have now been framed negatively given the applicant's efforts to cooperate fully throughout. Item 6, the client is happy to use a non-permeable material for the proposed balcony floor, allowing surface water to be properly drained and connected to the existing gutter system. In closing, the proposed balcony is modest, appropriately designed, and complies with the relevant planning policies and guidance. It will not result in a significant or unacceptable impact on the amenity of the neighbouring property. The applicant has demonstrated a consistent willingness to communicate, adapt, and cooperate
I need
with
to stop
the
you there
process.
because both speakers were gone over by 25 seconds, so that's all right. Thank you. Questions from councillors? Councillor, who wants to go first? Councillor Hargreaves, please.
At the end of your speech for the objector, you put in a couple of conditions that you, if it was granted, you would like. Could you just repeat those, please? And I've got them clearly. briefly.
Okay, yeah, and actually that's very helpful because I was thinking we could hear it. Is the applicant's agent also referred to the material that they would be happy to use on the floor, on the base of the 80 centimetre balcony? Could you maybe just say that bit again? What you would contend
yes.
with? We could condition it to be agreed by.
Yeah, that's fine. A non-permeable material. To be honest, it could be anything. I mean, glass would be less sort of private for Miss Kent, but it could be any old non-permeable material as long as it can drain water.
Any other questions at this point? No. Okay. Thank you. We'll thank you for your contributions. We'll move to cover this off with officers now. I think there probably was a condition on materials. Does that capture the sort of the developing common ground on the treatment of the base of the balcony that would be not allowing dripping to take place and also more generous in light transfer? I think that's what I was picking up. We can have this conditioned by officers. We're not going to decide it tonight.
So at the moment, officers haven't recommended a condition to alter the flooring of the balcony. If members feel that a condition is necessary to make the development acceptable, then that is an option before you this evening. So I would recommend that an additional condition is attached for alternative details of the flooring to be provided. Yes.
Okay, I'm seeing nodding going on. Are councillors ready to move to a decision on this one? Okay. With the...
Check that you're happy for this to be delegated to officers for them to approve these details, judged on what they've heard tonight.
Yes, so there will be, with the... Oh, Councillor Verboden.
As long as the material is impermeable.
I think we know there is common ground there, and then through the condition, officers will find the correct material that satisfies the concerns and interests of both sides. So with that condition on balcony material that we've heard discussed, can I see those in favour of granting? Okay, so 77 Cornwall Crescent application is granted. Thank you. And next we will move to Bolton Gardens.
Thank you, Chairman. This item relates to Flat 1, 30 to 31 Bolton Gardens. This is an application for the construction of a single-storey garden building in the rear garden. Here we have a site location plan. The property comprises two semi-detached terrace buildings subdivided into flats. This application relates to the lower ground floor flat and the garden to the rear of number 31. The site is located in the Courtfield Conservation Area. Here we have an aerial view of the site. And here we have a couple of existing site photographs which demonstrate the location of the proposed outbuilding. And here we have a block plan showing the siting of the proposed outbuilding. So the proposed outbuilding would be 3 metres deep and 4.5 metres wide, with a maximum height of 3.2 metres, including roof lantern. It would be positioned approximately 1 metre away from the rear garden wall and the fence along the shared boundaries, and in the rear garden, and it would be sited in the rear garden of number 31. It would be a concrete structure clad in horizontal painted timber slats. It would have a traditional glazed roof lantern in the centre of the flat roof of the outbuilding. Here we have proposed floor plans and elevations. The overall size of the structure would be modest in context of the host property, and it would not detract from the open character of the conservation area. The traditional design and materials of the outbuilding would complement the age and character of the host property, the terrace group, and the wider area. Officers consider that given the discrete nature of the outbuilding and its setback positioning, it would not lead to additional overshadowing or overbearing. Here we have proposed sections and side elevations. Officers have acknowledged that there is an existing aspect of mutual overlooking between the garden to the rear of number 30 and the upper floor flats at the host and neighbouring properties. Given this context and the ancillary nature of the outbuilding as proposed to be a reading room, and the setback siting of the outbuilding, approximately 7.4 metres away from the rear facade of the host property, it is not considered that the proposed outbuilding would have a detrimental impact on privacy of neighbouring occupiers. Conditions have also been appended, suggested conditions have also been appended relating to obscure glazing. The proposed outbuilding is generally considered to be well designed and a subservient addition to the host property. It's considered to be discreetly located within the rear garden with limited public and private views and would not detract from the character and appearance of the wider conservation area. It would ensure to maintain good living conditions for neighbouring occupiers. It is officers' recommendation that this application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Christopher Knapp, please. Objector. Just having a look around. Can you identify, just so I can see where we're looking, Christopher? No. Okay. Right. If that's the case, we don't have any speakers, so we just go straight to questions to officers. Councillor Hargreaves.
I note from the report that there was a similar application put in and then withdrawn earlier in the year. Can you just explain the difference between that and this, please?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. I'm not completely sure as to the reasons why that application was withdrawn, but I do know that through the course of this application, officers worked with the applicant to reduce the size of the proposed outbuilding. So, yeah, we worked with the applicant during this application.
So this application is smaller than the... I know we're looking at this application, I appreciate that, but it's smaller than the one that was submitted earlier in the year, is it?
I couldn't confirm for you. I can double check, but I'm assuming that's the case.
Any other? Councillor North.
Just very briefly to focus on the trees, because it's, there's a couple of trees involved here, the crabapple tree that's to be felled and the pruning of the nearby tree. I just confirmed from this that the crabapple tree was a problem for the wall itself, so there is a logical reason for that removal.
Sorry, would you mind repeating that?
Sorry, I'm just confirming my understanding that the crabapple tree is not just being removed because we're installing this unit, it's also a problem for the neighbouring wall. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, we've kind of discussed that in paragraph 6.13. There's been previous permission granted for the pruning of the tree and the felling of the crabapple tree. As you said, it was growing quite close to the rear wall and was in an unsustainable position. This application is supported by an agricultural assessment and has concluded that the proposed works would not lead to loss of any trees of any amenity, historic or ecological value due to the construction of this. But we would obviously be securing measures via condition to safeguard the tree through construction phases.
Thank you very much. Are councillors ready to move to a decision on this one? I think it's quite clear. Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? That is granted. Now moving on, please, to 12 Cathcart Road.
Thank you, Chairman. The next item on the agenda relates to 12 Cathcart Road. So this application relates to a detached single-family dwelling house comprising of 3 stories in height and of a modernist design constructed in the late 1950s. This is an application for the proposed demolition of this 2-storey dwelling and construction of a high-quality two-storey dwelling, including landscaped garden, improved boundary treatment, and reduced vehicular crossover. Here we have a site location plan. So the property's been extended previously. The property is not statutorily listed, but is located within the Boltons Conservation Area and is noted as a positive contributor. I just wanted to clarify a point for members as well, and firstly draw members' attention to the addendum pack, which has been circulated, where we address some issues in the report, just for clarity purposes for members, and we also note additional representations that have been received. I also just wanted to clarify a quick point as well in one of the paragraphs, just for members' benefit. In paragraph In paragraph 6.30, we refer to there being less than substantial harm that would not be outweighed by public benefits. So I just wanted to draw members' attention to that, just as it's not mentioned in the reason for refusal. And it should be, because that is the conclusion that we do reach at the end of the report. Here we have an aerial view of the proposal. And the extent of the existing dwelling house. And here we have some existing site photographs. So as mentioned, this is in the conservation area and it's identified as a positive contributor. It's described as a good quality detached house of this period with considered articulation. It's modest in scale, recessive in form, and is of modernist architecture. It sits comfortably within a predominantly Victorian streetscape. Officer considers these qualities along with the consistency of the post-war group and consider it to make a positive contribution to the character and appearance of the conservation area. In order to justify the demolition of the building identified as positive, policy CD4 of the local plan requires the replacement to make a greater overall contribution to the character and appearance and significance of the conservation area. Here we have existing site photos and existing elevations. And here we have proposed elevations. So this is the proposed front elevation. The red line shows the extent of the ridge height of the existing dwelling house. So the proposed replacement dwelling would be 2 stories, maintaining the setback building line and the general height relationship with adjoining houses. We do acknowledge the scale is modest compared to nearby Victorian terraces and would remain subservient to larger buildings on Tregunta Road. So overall, we do consider the massing to be broadly acceptable. Here we have another elevation showing the street scene. I've included for members the CGIs that were included within the submission, just as I think this helps visually demonstrate the proposals. Officers, however, consider that the new dwelling does not exceed the contribution of the existing house when assessed in terms of heritage, significance and townscape character. Taken together, these factors mean that replacement dwelling would not deliver a greater contribution to the character and appearance or significance of the Boltons Conservation Area. Instead, its construction would result in the loss of an identified positive contributor, causing less than substantial harm under the terms of the MPPF. Officers consider that the private benefits of the scheme do not amount to public benefits, outweighing the harm that's been identified. I would also draw members' attention once again to the addendum pack. Where, as stated earlier, officers have clarified some points for members, but particularly wanted to clarify that officers have responded to some matters around daylight sunlight concerns, namely drawing members' attention to paragraph 6.36, where we kind of address the assessment and the conclusions that we've made on daylight sunlight. We acknowledge that there would be some reduction to neighbouring windows and spaces. However, it's officers' view that these would not be so harmful to warrant a refusal on these grounds. However, as stated, officers have identified that the proposal is contrary to policies CD3 and CD4 of the local plan. just for members' benefit, I'm just showing a couple more images here. This is a proposed view to note this is a street not in bloom. And here we have the proposed model from Redcliffe Road. Here we have existing and proposed view from Cathcart Road. And here we have a proposed view, again, with the street not in bloom, so the dwelling is more visible. And here we have the proposed model just for members' benefit. So in conclusion, the proposal is recommended to you for refusal, as the proposed replacement dwelling would provide a greater fails to demonstrate that the replacement dwelling would provide a greater overall contribution to the character and appearance of the Bolton's conservation area, resulting in less than substantial harm, given that this is a positive contributor in the conservation area. And officers have considered that the proposals would be contrary to policies CD3 and CD4 of the local plan. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cormac Weldon, please.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you very much. Myself and my wife own 18 Cathcart Road, and we got planning permission to significantly renovate it in July 2024. Most of my comments will relate to the renovated property, although we have some comments about it as it is as well. My question to you is, would you want a 12-foot high building, a 9-foot high wall, within 2 feet of your kitchen and dining room windows? I certainly don't, and actually I don't think I'd want them from my neighbour either. If implemented, we think this plan would have a severe impact on our daylight and sunlight and would be extremely visually intrusive as well. It would severely impact our enjoyment and amenity of our home. If you think I'm being hyperbolic, we've included some visuals to show the visual impact of sitting in our kitchen looking at a brick wall to give you some insight of what it might be like. We don't think the Planning Committee report adequately addresses the impact on our property. It cites the BRE report prepared by the applicant and highlights the 92% of windows tested which would remain above the BRE guidelines. However, 44% of our windows would fall below the BRE guidelines by between 27 and 55%. We think that's reasonably severe and would be significantly impacting, as I said, our kitchen and dining room. I should say that the applicant did not carry out a BRE report for the property as it is, so those data are as renovated by us in the future. In addition, in 6.35, the planning officers look at how visually intrusive the building at the back of the property, which goes from east to west, would be for somebody standing on the street, and they make the observation that a high wall and foliage would protect that person from the visual impact of the new building. But if you consider that building is going to be within 2 feet of our kitchen and dining room windows, we think that's probably likely to be quite visually impactful. However, it's not all bad news. The applicant has approached us yesterday, and we would certainly think, we would hope that we could come to a conclusion that would be suitable for both of us. However, I would say in conclusion, I would either ask you to defer the application so that we could consider it and come to some arrangement between us, or if you're minded to refuse it for other grounds, I would ask you to include the impact of our enjoyment, of our amenity, of our home in that refusal as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rupert Clark, the applicant. Just having a look to see where you're there. Good. You have 3 minutes as well. Thank you.
Chair, members, good evening. I'm Rupert Clark, the owner of 12 Cathcart Road, where my family and I have lived for the past 18 months. This application represents the creation of our long-term family home, not a development project. We love this area and value its unique character. Our goal from the beginning has been simple: to replace a tired 1950s house with a sustainable, contextual family home that fits beautifully within the Bolton's conservation area. We fully understand and respect the duty to preserve and enhance the conservation area, but we feel the officer's report gives too much weight to the existing building, which is neither listed nor distinctive, and too little to the quality, sustainability and public benefits of what we are proposing. On heritage, the existing house is one of several modest post-war infills with limited architectural merit. It has been extended 3 times, losing any original coherence, and our independent heritage assessment concluded it is, at best, a neutral contributor. It's also not part of a consistent group between numbers 10 and 18. Those houses differ completely in scale, materials and design. And whilst it's attributed to Wallace Gilbert and Partners, it was in fact designed decades later by an unnamed architect from the practice. In truth, it is the site that is special, not the building. Our proposal respects what matters: the 2-storey scale, the setback, the rhythm of the street, and it rebuilds the traditional brick garden wall to match the original character. It improves first floor separation to number 18 and uses a refined palette of materials that sit comfortably alongside neighbouring houses. Far from harming the area, the new design restores coherence and quality to this part of Cathcart Road. On public benefit, the new home achieves 137% biodiversity net gain, introduces new tree planting and delivers net zero ready sustainability, cutting carbon emissions and improving drainage and water management. We have consulted extensively, including with the Boltons Association, who recognise the overall benefit to the conservation area. They do not write letters of support for applications, but councillors will notice they have not objected. As residents and custodians of the conservation area, this speaks volumes in terms of the quality of what we are proposing. All technical consultees, highways, trees, ecology, drainage, raise no objections. The only question tonight is whether this new home makes a greater contribution than what stands there now. We firmly believe it does in design, materials and sustainability, and request to look at the design with an open mind. In conclusion, members, this is not a case of harm versus preservation, but of thoughtful renewal. It replaces an outdated, heavily altered structure with a family home of lasting architectural and environmental quality. We respectfully ask the committee to recognise the care, evidence and quality behind this proposal and to grant permission for 12 Cathcart Road.
Thank you very much. Questions from councillors? Councillor Retty.
Thank you, Chair. Question to the objector, Mr. Walder. Sorry, remind me, are you 12A, is that what you said?
18.
18, all right, okay. Could you just briefly explain the distance between number 12 and 18, because there's a massive garden between?
There is at the moment, that's correct. And for part of the building there will be as well. But if you look at the back of the property, the applicant's property will come right up to our boundary. So there will be 0 distance between the 2 buildings at that point. So right up to the back of our property, in front of our kitchen and dining room windows, no distance.
So, but the construction of the actual building won't be in the garden. You're saying the boundary line is that what you...
No. If you look at the back of the building, perhaps you could help the gentleman. There's a new building being added to the back of the garden, going from boundary to boundary, east to west. So that new building will come right up to our boundary.
Okay, I'll clarify with the officers later on. Thanks for the clarification. Thank you.
Any other questions? Looks like Councillor Hargreaves. Yeah.
Question, Mr. Weldon. You mentioned towards the end that you've been chatting with the applicant and looking at ways in which you could make this work. That's from your point of view. The issue that we're looking at here is more about the replacement of an existing building. So
sure.
But just focus a couple of seconds on what you might be amenable to.
So to be clear, the applicant reached out yesterday. Obviously, the timelines were quite tight. And what I said was, I think I'm sure we could come to some arrangement. The arrangement we would like would be that his building does not come right up to our boundary, right up to our windows, but it is recessed some distance away from those windows. I think we'd have to look at architectural drawings and the impact that that would have on our daylight and sunlight. So just moving the property back some distance.
And thank you. That's helpful to understand. It's not something we'll be able to. We can pick up the conclusions of that with officers, but it's not something we'll be able to redesign tonight.
No,
obviously.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And nor could we in that short space.
Yeah. I mean, just for completeness, is there any comment from the applicant about that, or obviously the application in front of us tonight is what's been submitted, and that's what we'll make the decision on.
Yes, we had it all assessed thoroughly, and the council have verified it as well.
Thank you. All right, so move to questions to officers. If you could just pop your microphone off now, thank you. Councillor Retty wants to go first.
Yeah, just want a clarification on the point raised by the objector. Is that going all the way to the end of number 18, which is quite far? I'm looking at the landscape. And then how close would that be to number 18? Because I don't see that proposal in the existing drawings. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So yeah, I mean, you can see from the proposed elevations, proposed front elevations, that the proposed dwelling would extend close to the boundary with number 18. So yes, it would infill more of the existing application site. The dwelling is obviously, for the most part, two-storey, but there is a single-storey element that is close to the boundary with number 18. So yes, we acknowledge that it would be close in proximity to the boundary, but those elements are single-storey.
Thank you. Just to pick up on something the objector mentioned, I think they said something. A quite significant portion of their windows would exceed the BRE guidelines. That being one point, and the second was: is there the description of impact on amenity? Is there an assessment of a sense of enclosure that is created by the building, which we've heard is getting closer?
Yeah, thank you for your question. We acknowledge that the dwelling would introduce a noticeably wider footprint and obviously occupy a lot more of the site. It's modest in height, and obviously there are differing ridge heights, given that parts single-storey and parts two-storey. But we've concluded that the side extension element would not give rise to an unacceptable sense of bulk or enclosure to neighbouring properties. The proposals are considered to be acceptable in this regard. Yeah, I'm happy, obviously, to draw members' attention again to the addendum pack, where officers clarified the position on daylight sunlight for the benefit of members. And we do acknowledge that the results of the daylight sunlight assessments are demonstrated in paragraph 6.36 for members. But we've taken a view based on the reports that we've received. And we've made a judgment regarding both submissions, a full understanding of the site constraints, as well as policy CD9. And we've concluded that members will have seen in the report that we're quite comfortable with the overall impact and that it would be acceptable in relation to not resulting in an unacceptable loss of daylight sunlight to neighbouring properties for residents.
Thank you. Any Councillor Verboven?
Just from my understanding, that particular window of number 18, if number 12 is extended, what is the distance between the wall of number 12 and the window of number 18? In
terms of meters.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question. I'm not going to be able to provide the exact measurement. The best I can do for you is refer you to the proposed front elevation. We can obviously see the edge of the dwelling, but we can also see the extent of boundary wall behind the trees. So, yeah, we acknowledge the proximity, but we have sort of carefully assessed that impact. I'm just having a quick look to see. Yeah.
I think, Chair, would it be helpful if we get the measurement from the...
I think we should just, unless officers, we've finished with that section, so we'll go on what we know here. Thank you. Councillor Verhoeven.
That was my question. For me, it sounds very, very close indeed. So
yeah,
I find that problematic.
Okay. Look, if there are no more questions, we have an officer recommendation. Are people happy to move to a vote? Okay. So in this case, and for the reasons set out in the report, the officer recommendation is to refuse. All right. Ready to go? Or?
Yes, sorry. Sorry, you're going for the one reason for refusal in the pack. Is that what you're voting on?
That's I don't think we've developed that so further than what's set out in the officer report.
Yes, and just to clarify, where it says harm in the reason for refusal, it's going to read this.
Sorry, it's quite indistinct. Could you put the microphone up to your face?
Sorry, beg your pardon. Yes. So with regards to the reason for refusal, just to clarify. The final sentence in the paragraph is going to read, this identified less than substantial harm has not been sufficiently balanced by the public benefits. Okay, so just to clarify that.
Okay, so as set out with those comments in the report, officer recommendation is to refuse. Can I see those voting for refusal? Okay. And that was all right? I saw all the hands. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. So that is refused per officer's report. Thank you, everyone. 10 Holland Park.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I begin my presentation, I would just like to draw members' attention once again to the addendum report. Several additional letters and reports have been provided by the agent and they've been appended to this report. That includes some responses to objections received on the application and also some further technical reports. There is also some suggested changes to Condition 2 and Condition 14. The application before members relates to number 10 Holland Park. This is a Grade 2 listed building located within the Holland Park Conservation Area. The application building can be seen identified by the red arrow on the aerial imaging on the slide. The proposed application seeks planning permission for the construction of a single-storey lower ground floor extension under the rear garden. This would be treated as a basement. There would also be some internal alterations at lower ground floor level and the installation of plant within an existing timber enclosure in the rear garden. In relation to the basement, I thought this image was helpful to show the location and the size of the basement. So members may note the existing built footprint of the existing residential property in this location, the existing rear garden, and then in the hatched colouring is the proposed basement. The proposed basement would equate to 49.8% of the existing open space, which is the rear garden. The existing section can be seen on this slide. This shows the existing area at that basement level to be demolished. And this shows the proposed section with the proposed basement projecting under the rear garden. The proposed basement has been designed with a 1 metre of topsoil in this location here and in this location here. In terms of the basement floor plan, it would include a swimming pool and also a gym. This is the proposed ground floor, so this is the garden, so members can note some alterations at garden level in terms of the soft landscaping. And then this is a more zoomed in image of the proposed basement, just to show members those floor to ceiling heights and the additional allowance which has been allowed for the proposed pool. Members may have noted as part of the officer's report there has been a reference to a 2020 application and a 2017 application, both of which were granted. This shows the outline of the basement as part of that 2020 application, and this shows it as part of that 2017 application. The recommendation before members this evening is to grant planning permission and listed building consent, subject to the recommended conditions set out within the report. And similar to the earlier application members heard this evening, you will need to form a decision and a vote on the application for planning permission and then the application for listed building consent. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Henry Shipley. Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Thanks for waiting so far.
Not at all. First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak to Planning Committee. It comes before Planning Committee as a result of there being 19 objections on behalf of neighbours. These objections have been prepared with the help of experienced consultants. Many of them are technical objections. It's noted at the time I last visited your website, there were only 5 consultation responses. Crucially, this did not include Heritage England's development team. I would suggest that that is an important area to be included. Whilst Heritage England did respond with regard to archaeology, they did not respond from the point of view of their development team. I would comment on the consultee's response. The highways officer makes limited comment with regard to the construction traffic management plan. And critically, offers no analysis of the traffic figures. The environmental health air quality response does at least quote some traffic figures leading to an assessment of the development against a maximum traffic volume of 25 heavy goods vehicles per day. The arboricultural officer relies on the previous submitted reports and forms, in my view, incorrect conclusions. The cumulative impact of this development with a similar development consented but not yet started at number 12 Holland Park, the other side of my client's property, is simply dismissed with the need for the applicant and my client and the number 12 to enter into communication. Nor has there been made any assessment of the cumulative impact on neighbours with particular reference to cumulative structural damage and traffic movements. In summary, glaring omissions are apparent in making an assessment of the impact of this development may have on neighbours' quality of life, or the impact this development may have on the structural stability of adjacent listed buildings, especially my client's home, which would have development, major development, on both sides. In conclusion, despite the objections to this development, many of which were highly technical in nature, no proper technical assessment has been made of the issues raised by objectors within the officer's report, with an overly reliance, and we've seen it again this evening, with an overly reliance on previous approvals.
We've come to the 3 minutes, thank you.
Okay.
But we've definitely got that. For the applicant, can we hear from, I've got Hannah Whitney and Sean Bangard. Thank you. You have just over 3 minutes as well.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Hannah Whitney, Planning Director at Lichfields and the planning agents for the application. I'm also joined by my colleague from Wolf Architects. The applications before you today essentially comprise the renewal of a scheme that has previously been approved by the Council, the key change being that the size of the basement has been reduced by 15 square metres. The proposals are sensitively designed to respect the Grade 2 listed building and the Holland Park conservation area and comprise a discrete and sympathetic basement extension that would preserve the significance and special interest of the building and the character and appearance of the conservation area. The proposals meet the Council's basement policy, CD11, in particular, the 50% limitation compared to the garden. The basement is limited to 1 storey and sits level to the existing lower ground floor. The basement does not involve excavation underneath the listed building, and the minimum of 1 metre of soil between basement and garden is met. The light wells are covered by steps, and they will provide natural light to the new basement level, and will be fitted with blackout blinds with a daylight sensor, ensuring no light spillage. A comprehensive suite of assessments has been undertaken to ensure impacts have been fully considered and that mitigation is identified where required. These reports have been reviewed and considered to be acceptable by officers. Where mitigation is proposed to minimise impacts, these are addressed by condition, for example, requiring the details of the construction traffic management plan, which will build on the initial report already submitted with the application. See condition 10, for example. And also the additional drainage and sedge information as required by draft condition 914. No trees are to be removed. The applicant is committed to the delivery of a successful landscaping scheme to mitigate the loss of the 2 hornbeam hedges as required by draft condition 4. We are aware that concerns have been raised by some neighbours regarding amenity and the potential cumulative impacts given the approved development at 12 Holland Park. We have responded to these concerns in detail, and the applicant will monitor and coordinate development with the relevant contractors as appropriate to minimise impacts. In summary, the proposed development has been approved by the Council previously in a similar form. The development has been carefully designed to address policy requirements, and mitigation is proposed to minimise impacts on neighbours. On this basis, we ask councillors to agree with the officer's recommendation and approve planning and listed building consent this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from councillors? Councillor Aretti.
Question to the applicants. Presumably, this is an transpired or expired application from 2020. Is there a reason why you couldn't manage to, finish off or start the works?
Yeah, so there were existing tenants within the building, and whilst it was hoped that they would be vacating the property to allow the development to take place, that wasn't the case, and the tenants did actually stay on with the accommodation, so that's why it wasn't possible to implement the development.
Just to follow up, was that informed to the objectors and the neighbouring properties? That's my next question. Also, some of the concerns raised by the objectors just now, would you be able to sort of send a mitigation plan or any communication to the objectors? Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of the reason why the application wasn't implemented, that is set out in the application documentation. And also with respect to the impacts on development, we have provided a comprehensive response to the objections that have been raised. And in addition, you'll see there are a number of conditions that require extra details that need to be provided, for example, in terms of the construction management plan. So there are extra steps that will be taken to make sure that amenity is protected.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's, if there are no more questions, we'll move on to discussion with officers. Councillor Hargreaves.
Thank you very much. In the pack, we've got 2 or 3 very detailed reports, and trees featuring generally throughout the report. Could you just confirm that this meets the concerns about the trees, and that doesn't present any problems with the application, please?
Thank you, Councillor. So as mentioned earlier by the applicant, the proposal won't result in the loss of any trees. A tree report has been provided and has been reviewed by our tree officers, and it's been concluded that the proposal would not harm any trees of amenity value. There are some recommended conditions, and they're quite important. So you've got recommended condition 4, which requires no development to commence until a scheme of landscaping is provided. So that does include further details of any replacement shrubs, because we've heard this evening, and as you may have referenced in the report, there is going to be a loss of some soft landscaping. You will then have recommended condition 5, which relates to the planting and replanting. So that will secure the delivery of those landscaping, or that soft landscaping secured by condition 4. So it has been carefully considered by officers, and it has been found to be acceptable, subject to those recommended conditions as well, to further safeguard it.
Just to pick up from me, with the 2 previously granted applications, I think it's in the report, but those are sort of firmly a material consideration for us, because there has not been any significant change in policy that would mean that this gets looked at from all over again.
Thank you. So those applications were granted in 2017 and 2020. So there has been an update to the development plan. So we do have the new local plan. There hasn't been, as you say, a significant change in our approach to basements. And as I say, the new assessment of this application considers it against the development plan and is found to be acceptable, given some weight to the previous permissions as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Right. Ready to move. We've got a listed building and the planning permission. So on the planning permission first, and we have taken into account this is a large development, but it looks like it's meeting the policies. Can I see those in favour of granting? That's 4, is it? And those against? Okay, so that's granted 4-1. And for listed building consent, can I see those in favour? Those against? It's again 4-1. All right, thank you very much. That is both planning permission and listed building consent granted. Please move to 38 Smith Terrace.
Thank you, Chairman. This item relates to 38 Smith Terrace. Here we have a site location plan. The application site is a 3-storey property, including mansard roof extension on the north side of Smith Terrace within the Royal Hospital Conservation Area. It has an existing basement storage area with a low floor-to-ceiling height beneath the main building. Here we have an aerial view showing the extent of the street scene. And here we have some site photographs showing the principal elevation. And here we have some site photographs from the rear garden space. And here we have some additional photos from the rear as well. Here we have the existing and proposed basement level. To note, the previous basement application that members may recall was refused earlier in the year, as it was not considered to be compliant with policy CD11, as it was more than 1 storey in depth and was more than 50% of the rear garden area. Within these current proposals, the basement has been reduced in size and depth and now broadly complies with the basement policy. Here we have the existing and proposed ground level. Also, the proposal now allows for more retention of the building than in the previous scheme. The degree of demolition is required to accommodate the proposed extensions rather than being a whole-scale demolition behind the retained facade as per the previously refused proposal. The level of demolition is not considered excessive to what is reasonably required to accommodate the proposed extension and internal works. The proposed demolition under this application would not result in harm to the character, appearance or significance of the conservation area. Here we can see the extent of the proposed rear elevations. These are broadly similar to the previous scheme that was determined by members previously. And here we have the extent of the existing and proposed front elevation. And just for members' benefit, you may recall this was a refused scheme. So it was considered last time that this scheme didn't comply with the basement policy CD11. but this time officers are recommending approval. The proposals would continue to preserve the character and appearance of the building and the wider terrace and the Royal Hospital Conservation Area. They would ensure good living conditions, would continue for neighbouring occupiers, and show broad compliance on balance with the Council's requirements for basement developments, including flooding concerns. The application before members is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alec Letchfield. Thank you for waiting. You've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alec Letchfield. I live at number 39, which is to the right of the property in question, and also representing the other neighbours who have rejected as well. Just a quick reminder, I think the original application was rejected based on the demolition of the existing house, the basement, which was too deep and too large in area. And I think the current application, in addition to additional applications made post the original one, which were approved without being put forward to the committee, are effectively circumventing the original rejection by the committee. Covering each point in turn, if you look at the demolition itself, looking at the 3 applications that have been made post original rejection, the mansard roof is being removed. Floor 2, floor 1, ground floor and lower ground floor are all effectively being removed. This is effectively demolition in all but name. Looking at the basement, if you look at the basement levels and you kind of look at the original application, what we see there is that the rear of the basement is now half a metre or 50 centimetres less than the original application. I still think it breaches on the depth issue that we originally rejected. In terms of the area of the basement, the front basement breaches the current guidelines, being more than 50% of the area. Now, the reason I think that was given by both the applicant and also by the planning officers was that this is already being done on the or had been done on the street. And I think just because something was approved in the past but isn't under current guidelines doesn't mean that it should be approved this time round. If you refer to document CMS Part 1, they also refer to groundwater issues, excavation issues, potential damage to structuring neighbouring buildings, of which mine is one, and also talked about some kind of toxic issues as well in terms of ground material. So I think in conclusion, I think you should reject it. I think it is circumventing the original application. I think at the very least the applicant should be made to bring this all back so that the council can consider it holistically rather than the self-approach being adopted at the moment. And also I don't think that the applicant has put forward sufficient answers in terms of ground material, excavation work and structural damage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andrew Patterson. Good evening. Please, you've got 3 minutes as well.
Sorry for that. That was terrible. Good evening. My name is Andrew Patterson, and I'm here tonight representing the applicant. This application before you seeks the erection of a single-storey glass infill and a single-storey basement. The single-storey glass infill addition has already been granted planning permission. Planning permission has also been recently granted for a replacement mansard roof and alterations to the front and rear facades of the dwelling house. As the report before you by the officers explains, members refused a more extensive proposal for this site back in June. That report clearly sets out all of the issues to be considered. The previous application proposed demolition of the building behind a retained facade. That demolition is no longer proposed. It does not form part of this application. Members were previously concerned the basement element would create a double-storey basement and extend too far into the rear garden. The current proposal seeks a single-storey basement below the property that extends to just 50% of the rear garden, which I think complies with policy CD11. A light well is created to the front of the property. This light well occupies the whole of the existing front area, so it matches other light wells in the street, including that of the next-door neighbour and objector at number 39, and those approved by this planning committee at number 1 in 2020 and number 28 in 2023. This element does not breach policy CD11 as it is open space as a light well. It is not being enclosed as a habitable space. Light wells are a traditional and characteristic feature of this particular street scene. Of the 44 properties in the street, 29 have full front light wells. The creation of the front light well will, we believe, enhance the street scene and offer the opportunity to reinstate the original railing design to the front of the property. This is entirely consistent with policy CD11 as well as policies CD1, 2, 3, 4, 10 and 15 of the local plan. We are aware of the disruption that building works can cause. We don't wish to cause neighbours disruption. Inevitably, all building works result in some disturbance, but we are committed to keeping that to a minimum. We have agreed...
Just coming up to the 3 minutes now. So,
okay, I'm almost done.
All right.
We have agreed to all the Council's proposed conditions and commit to ensuring the development will be carried out in compliance with those conditions. To conclude, the application is only seeking a consent for a single-storey basement and a single-storey glass infill addition at the rear.
Okay. Yeah, I would just keep it tight because of the number of cases. But
okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah,
I mean, the quicker can you understand what I'm saying? If I speak quickly?
Yeah, no, I think we got it. But
okay, and I would also just like to say that Councillor Hargreaves was on the planning committee that refused the previous double basement and.
Right. I mean, this just so everyone understands. We are judging we are reviewing the application in front of us. Not anything that's gone before. We look at each case on its own merits.
Okay, should I turn my microphone?
No, well, fine, thank you. Let's, any questions? It may come up in questions. Any questions from councillors? No, okay, we'll move to officers now. We do have, there have been a number of applications which are moving around here, but this application itself, I'm just concluding, just so we're very clear on it, this is the one we're looking at tonight. And this meets policies. Obviously, neighbours are concerned about works and structural elements. That often happens with basements, but this is a now policy compliant application.
Yeah, happy to confirm that we're basically saying we're looking here at the application for the basement elements. It's set out for members. I think paragraph 6.6 quite helpful, and kind of the history that the officers set out as well. In paragraph 4.6, there have been a number of applications here. I think what officers have tried to do in the report is address that there are other consented proposals at the application dwelling house, and it's acknowledged that this current application and the two previously consented applications could be implemented at the same time. So officers have essentially assessed the cumulative impact of the proposals. However, yeah, this proposal, as you said, is for the basement element and the single-storey extension element. At lower ground floor, and we have considered it to be broadly compliant with CD11. We've acknowledged the light well that's been mentioned, but we've clearly set out our justification for this element in paragraph 6.22 for members. So the light well basement area is 5.5 square metres. A 50% basement here would be 2.7 square metres in comparison. The applicants kind of address that a 50% light well would either result in the division of the undeveloped area on either side of the light well, or would result in small windows to the basement, which would just result in insufficient light to these rooms. We acknowledge there are others within the street scene and other examples, but obviously we're considering this on its own merit. So on balance, we're quite happy that it broadly complies with CD11.
Thank you. Any questions, further questions from officers? Okay, I think that's very clear. Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour?
Chair,
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to clarify something because of what was just said.
Yeah.
With regards to council...
Again, the mic.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Councillor Hargreaves, can I just check that... I don't know if Councillor Hargreaves was on the previous committee where this was refused, but... no, I just for the record, I think it would be better just to confirm you can consider this with an open mind, that's all. Just for the public record.
I mean, I think I was also. I think I was on it, but but that's why I'm saying I'm considering this purely on its own merits and irrespective of anything that's come before.
That's fine.
it.
I just thought for the public record because it was mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just better be safe than sorry. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. So, but this is fresh in front of us. That's what we're considering. Thank you. All right. So we're just about to go. Those. Officer recommendation is to grant. For those in favour, please show. And those against? So you can see that that is granted with one against. Thank you, everybody. That's the halfway point of the agenda, but I think it's speeding up a bit now because we're moving into the last part of it. Are people okay to go with another few cases? All right. Are officers okay? Karen, fine. Okay. Case 9, 30 Paulton Square, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Next item on the agenda today is 30 Paulton Square. Members to note that they will need to form a decision on both the full planning application and the listed building consent for this site. So this is a proposal for replacement infill extension at lower and raised ground floor levels, single-storey closet wing extension, installation of rear dormer window and reinstatement of original windows, as well as other associated works listed in the development description. Here we have a site location plan. So the application property is located at the southern end of Paulton Square and lies within the Cheney Conservation Area. The building is Grade 2 listed, built in the 1840s and comprises 5 stories. Here we have an aerial view, and here we have some existing site photographs. And here we have some more existing site photographs shown in the rear space of the garden. And here we have a proposed site plan. So the replacement of the non-historic glazed extension with a more contemporary addition is not considered to affect the architectural and historic interest of the designated asset. I'm just showing floor plans to see the extent of projection for members' purposes. Here we have the existing elevations, and here we have the proposed elevations. So while it would extend to a greater depth than the existing glazed conservatory, the proposed extension would remain set back from the rear elevation of the closet wing, ensuring that the modern addition is clearly read as a subservient element. Additionally, the proposed infill would be lower in height than the existing structure, thereby avoiding any risk of visual over-dominance, maintaining a balanced relationship with the host property. The single-storey closet wing extension would be acceptable and contextually appropriate, as it would approximately match the height of the adjacent closet wing, ensuring consistency with the rear elevation. The proposed infill extension, though a greater depth, would be set back and would not exceed the height of the existing infill. It would be positioned between 2 windowless closet wings. This arrangement would ensure that the extension does not introduce any harmful bulk or result in increased sense of enclosure to neighbouring properties. Although the proposed extensions would result in a high degree of glazing, it is noted that the existing infill extension is also glazed. As such, it is not considered that the proposal would result in any harmful light pollution materially beyond existing levels, particularly given that the proposed infill would be flanked between 2 windowless closet wings, which would further mitigate any potential impact. It's considered there would be little to no risk to privacy of neighbouring properties. The proposed rear terrace at ground floor level would have a footprint similar to the existing terrace, although it would be set back to accommodate the deeper infill extension. Any potential overlooking into neighbouring rear gardens, particularly at number 31, would be mitigated by the high existing garden boundary wall, existing privacy screening, and substantial amount of existing foliage along the shared boundary. Here we have existing sections. Overall, the proposal is considered to safeguard the heritage significance of the existing dwelling. It would be in keeping with the character and appearance of the existing dwelling and wider conservation area setting. The proposal would preserve good living conditions for neighbouring properties and is considered to comply with the relevant policies in the local plan. The proposal is therefore recommended for approval. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Carolyn and Amy Bartlett. I'm guessing that's over there. Thank you for waiting. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, so I'm Amy Bartlett. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Carolyn Bartlett. Sorry.
Moving your microphone closer,
Right.
thank you.
I'm Amy Bartlett. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Carolyn Bartlett, who lives at 29 Poulton Square, and it's also my childhood home. But yeah, I'm speaking, so I'm focusing on the two issues that we feel were not properly addressed in the report relating to number 29 and 31 Poulton Square. The objection by 29 Poulton Square, Carolyn Bartlett, relates to the proposed closet wing addition and the impact of the light on their property. The objection by 31 Poulton Square relates to the absence of a condition in the loft conversion application that the unauthorised rainwater drainage system at the front of number 30, which currently flows directly into number 31's drainage, is rerouted to the original position at the rear of number 30. The owner of number 29 Poulton Square strongly objects to the proposed closet wing addition, as it will have a detrimental effect on the light at the property. The reduction in light will be particularly noticeable in the mornings when the sun is shining from the east. It will have a significant impact on the daylight coming through from the conservatory, which has a glazed roof, designed to maximize the benefit of daylight. It will also affect the light coming through to their first floor living room window. Please refer to the sketch showing the light coming through at a 45-degree angle as existing and after the proposed extension has been completed. We are extremely disappointed that the Council have dismissed the objections relating to the reduced daylight at the rear of 29 Poulton Square. As a minimum requirement, a daylight assessment should have been carried out as part of this application. To safely construct the closet wing addition, a scaffold spanning across the conservatory of number 29 with additional supports in their garden would be required. This would pose a huge imposition on those living at the property. Although there are other closet wing additions on the terrace, none have been done for a very long time. We do not believe that this extension is in line with current listed building and right-to-light regulations. The objection by 31 Poulton Square relates to the absence of a condition in the loft conversion application that the unauthorised rainwater drainage system at the front of number 30, which currently flows directly into number 31's drainage, is rerouted to the original position at the rear of number 30. There have been significant leaks on the corner of 31, where the rainwater passes.
Just to say you're right up to the 3 minutes now, so if you have a concluding sentence, thank you.
So the owners of 31, if the Council is minded to accept this application, they're requesting an additional planning condition to be included to reroute number 30's drainage from across the front of 31 into one of number 30's gutters at the rear. This would be
Yeah, no, we picked up that point. We'll explore with officers whether we can do it, but thank you. There's a good amount of content in there. We don't have any speaker for the applicant, so any questions from councillors to... yeah, okay. Thank you for that. We're clear. We'll move on to officers. Yeah, if you just flip the microphone off, thank you. Oh. Okay, Gerald.
Thank you. Obviously, I know this property very well. Can you just deal with the right of light? Because actually, it is very tight at the back of these buildings, and a change in dimensions can affect that right of light. So can you explain that please, and what is the impact going to be?
Sorry, there's no more contributions from the floor.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I assume this is in relation to the closet wing element. So the proposed closet wing extension, I think, was carefully considered by officers and the impact on neighbouring immunity through rounds of pre-application advice. This element has been set back from the parapet of the existing closet wing to minimise any impact on neighbouring properties. I think officers are comfortable that the design approach ensures that there would be no significant loss of light or harmful effect on outlook, and the extension would not result in an overbearing impact to adjacent residents. We've addressed in the report the impact of this element, and we're quite comfortable that the setback ensures that there's not a sense of enclosure or it's overly bulky, and we've also assessed any impact of overshadowing. I think given the scale of this proposal, we haven't got a daylight study with this, given that there's a limited impact on the adjacent bathroom window with number 29. We're able to assess it based on our site visit and based on the plans before us.
So we don't have any specific data on this?
So there's not a daylight assessment as part of this proposal.
Councillor North.
Thank you. The one part about this that I'm a little bit perplexed by is on the heritage, and I wonder if you can help guide me on this. Now, clearly the extension, the glazed part of the extension is not original to the building, as is not next door, but can you assure us that the heritage officers involved in this are happy with it? Because it's a Grade 2 listed building in a conservation area, and this looks even further away from what might have been there originally, even with its modern glazed look.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So the replacement of the non-historic glazed extension that could be seen on the existing photos, so this would be replaced with a more contemporary addition. Yet design officers have absolutely been involved, and they've concluded that this would not affect the architectural and historic interests of the designated asset. There were concerns over the proposed external staircase, which would cut across the rear closet wing and result in some visual clutter to the rear. However, the harm caused to the significance of this designated asset as a result of this is minor and would be outweighed by heritage benefits of the scheme. So there are quite a number of benefits identified in the report, for the most part in relation to heritage benefits and the other alterations that are being made. So officers acknowledge in paragraph 6.11 that we are preserving the architectural and historic significance of the building, while some elements of the internal alteration, such as a slight lowering of the right-hand vault to accommodate a bathroom, would result in small levels of harm. We have acknowledged that this is outweighed by numerous heritage benefits internally, including reinstatement of historic floor plans, reinstatement of fire surrounds, chimney breasts, and reinstatement of the hallway door at first floor level. So we take into account that there will be an impact, but we're quite comfortable with the level of benefit that's provided here from a heritage perspective.
Thank you. Councillor Hargreaves, and then we'll move to a vote.
Can you just address the second point that was mentioned about the guttering? I didn't really follow that. Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, I remember it was actually being mentioned. Yeah, this. I think this is not part of a planning application. This is a question about whether a gutter had historically been diverted to discharge rainwater onto a neighbour's property, and the question was from the objector was, could this application be made to correct that historic direction of rainwater? And I don't think there's anything we can do about that.
I mean, I think we'd need to understand the situation on site as it is before we formed any view. I mean, I'm quite happy to refer the matter to enforcement. I'm not suggesting there has been a breach of planning, but certainly we could get an officer out to have a look and see whether it's something that can be tidied up through an existing permission, or requires planning permission in any way.
I mean, I think the key thing, Mr. Chairman, is not part of this application, therefore we can't consider it. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not included as part of this application, and without understanding the actual position on site, I don't think we can comment on whether we could add a condition or anything on that. Yeah.
So just for the benefit, this is quite a technical conversation. It's not part of the application, so we can't do anything about it tonight. But Ms. Chung has suggested she refers the matter to officers who can then take a look and see if there is anything which it is breaching, given it's a listed building. There may be something historic that can be corrected there. Any other points? Okay. We have 2 votes on this in front of us. For planning permission, officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? That's 3. And those against? That's 2. Tim and Gerard. Okay. And for listed building consent, can I see those in favour? 3. And those against? So same names, you've recorded that. Okay, so both of those are granted by 3-2. Thank you very much. 49 Radnor Walk. Officers will present the case first. I know you're looking, but thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The next item on the agenda relates to 49 Radnor Walk. This is a proposal for extension to rear at first floor and second floor to add an extra ensuite at first floor and a bedroom at second floor. The extension will be constructed in London stock brick, and other associated works are also proposed. Here we have a site location plan. Oh, sorry, I should also firstly draw members' attention to the addendum pack, where we received 1 additional representation. Also to note that the daylight sunlight assessment was updated on the 9th of October, and it was submitted to include the neighbouring basement roof light in response to objections and amendments where required to window heights at number 24B. This has not altered the conclusion that officers have made in the committee report in relation to that matter. So here we have the site location plan. This property is located in the Royal Hospital Conservation Area. Here we have an aerial view of the site. And here we have first floor plans, existing, demolition, extent, and proposed. So essentially this proposal is for an infill of a cutaway section of the rear extension at first floor level. A new second floor extension to match the building line of the neighbouring property is proposed. And the proposal would also include the creation of a roof terrace on top of the new second floor extension linking to the existing roof terrace via the demolition of a section of the rear parapet wall. So although the building is physically connected to the rest of the terrace between 51 and 59 Radnor Walk, it is architecturally different. The building is set forward, has no open light well at the front, and its floors are slightly different levels than the rest of the terrace, as the ground floor is level with the pavement rather than accessed via a set of stairs up to the front entrance. Here we have second floor plans, and here we have the proposed roof plan. And this is probably the most helpful plan. We can see the existing and the proposed elevations on the right showing the extent of the extension. The cutaway section is in a discrete location away from public view and all but most oblique private views. Where the infill would be visible, the development would act to unify the form of the extension. So as stated, a daylight sunlight report was submitted with the application that demonstrates there would be no harmful loss of light or overshadowing of the windows of neighbouring properties. The net increase in the size of the terrace would not be considered significant enough to result in a material increase in noise disturbance through its use. Overall, the proposal is considered to preserve the character and appearance of the group of buildings and the Royal Hospital Conservation Area. It's considered that the proposal would ensure that good living conditions continue for neighbouring occupants. And the proposal is therefore recommended to you today for approval. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. We've got Martin Davis and Edmund van der Kloot. You're there. Okay, do you want to go first? Sorry, just so we know who's who. Okay, and so you'll do 1 minute, and then you're going to do 2. All right, thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm here on behalf of my wife, Dominique, who owns 24B Smith Terrace, which is on Smith Terrace. It's opposite the proposed roof terrace. The privacy of the 2 main bedrooms of 24B Smith Terrace has not been considered or addressed in section 7.3 response to point 4. Our 2 main bedroom south aspect windows are right opposite the proposed roof terrace of 49 Radnor Walk, only 1.5 car widths away, as Smith Terrace is extremely narrow at that point. My and my wife's bedroom window is at eye level of someone sitting on the proposed roof terrace, and the proposed roof terrace looks down at an angle into my young daughter's bedroom window, right opposite her bed, right onto her bed, only 1.5 car widths away. I'm here on behalf of my wife, who's looking after my baby daughter, but she's submitted photos to the planning officer to demonstrate this point. You can also see that the proximity of the proposed roof terrace to our bedroom windows on Google Street View. My wife included a screenshot of this, and you can also see in some of the images that were put up that I'm done.
Hi, I own the basement flat at 51 Radnor Walk, the next house along the terrace. The original Daylight and Sunlight report that supports the application, it didn't include our flat, nor in particular our conservatory roof within the scope of its report. The planning officer initially attempted to justify this by saying that only affected windows are considered in the report, and so this just sort of misses the point, even on the 9th of October, that the most important window in our flat was our conservatory roof light. The planning officer said that a site visit was carried out on the 25th of January. This is only half of the story. They were invited repeatedly to come, but no one would ever come, and they had 9 months to come, so I'm really surprised. A proper site visit would have come into into our house, which is the only neighbouring house, and probably into the folks on 24B. So it wouldn't have been like a particularly very difficult thing to do. And had they done that, they would have seen that the conservatory in our flat is a light well for the rest of the flat, which is not only light into the conservatory, but light into the kitchen behind and the office behind that. The Daylight and Sunlight report was updated, but it was only uploaded yesterday, so this is like a ridiculous amount of time to respond. There are some conclusions in the Sunlight assessment report. There are some calculations, but I do question the integrity of these calculations, given that at their first attempt they failed to even notice that there was a sort of a conservatory. The report concludes that some of the measurements of the light into our conservatory window are 14% less than is satisfactory, that the satisfactory hurdle is 20%. But this 20%, it might be fine for a very bright room on like the first or ground floor, but I sort of question whether it's sort of suitable for a basement.
Just, you're coming up to the 3 minutes together.
Yep, and so it does sort of miss the point that this 20%, it might make sense for a whole house, but it doesn't make really sense for just sort of one window in a basement flat. And this is, I think, the third extension of this height in the wall. And I know that they can only consider it sort of on today's merits, but there's just like an incremental loss in the amount of our light.
No, thank you for that. There may be questions. Questions from councillors? Councillor North.
Just a brief question, really. I've got the letter in front of me. It was submitted less than 24 hours before this evening.
My apologies. We haven't heard from the applicant's agent. Losing track of here on our last case. My apologies, everyone. Claudia Turton.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
The proposal at 49 Radnor Walk is for a well-considered and policy-compliant extension to a single-family home, providing one additional bedroom and a small shower room to meet the growing space requirements of the owners. The property sits prominently on the corner of Radnor Walk and Smith Terrace, and we fully recognise the sensitivity and the visibility of its site due to this corner location. As has been mentioned, the end of terrace is a different style to the rest of the terrace and currently sits slightly further forward. The design has been carefully developed with respect to the character and scale of the existing terrace as a whole, the previous alterations to the house, and the surrounding context. Through pre-application discussions with officers, the massing was refined to ensure the proposal remains subordinate to the main building. The second floor extension was reduced to align with the main established terrace line and kept lower than the existing roof height, and is set back from Smith Terrace to keep a legible distinction between the extension and the original proportions of the house. All the materials are designed to match existing to remain in keeping with the conservation area, and a blue roof to slow rainwater has also been proposed and is included within the conditions. The small infill at first floor level will improve the overlooking and privacy for the neighbours at number 51 by removing the existing terrace and replacing it with a shower room that does not overlook their properties. As confirmed in both the daylight and sunlight report and the officer's assessment, this proposed infill would not result in any material loss of light to neighbouring windows. No new windows are proposed to either side elevation of any of the proposed extensions, removing the risk of added overlooking from new habitable spaces. The enlargement to the existing roof terrace is proposed to be extended to the rear by approximately 3 metres. This is set back from the extent of the first floor by approximately 1.2 metres, and it would sit entirely next to the adjoining brick wall of number 51, meaning it wouldn't be visible from the angle shown in the images taken from 24B Smith Terrace, which was submitted as the addendum. The terrace is set back, and so actually it wouldn't be in line with the windows. We've taken all neighbours' comments seriously. In response to the concerns regarding the daylight sunlight report, the consultants have rechecked all the relevant windows and have issued the report, including those serving the basement flat at number 51. Their updated analysis confirms the officer's conclusion that the proposal remains compliant and that no unacceptable impacts arise. Although outside the planning remit, we'll also wish to reassure neighbours that the party wall awards would of course be agreed before any work's begun. It's a well-considered and proportionate scheme that respects its context and the amenity of neighbours. We trust that the committee will support the officer's recommendation and grant approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There may be questions to both sides from councillors. Councillor Hargreaves, thank you.
Thank you. Really a question on this terrace, this is an incredibly tight area, and the terrace seems to be quite an issue here. We're getting two different versions of the terrace and the impact of the terrace. So could I ask the objector, please, to give your view of what you've heard about the terrace? You're saying it's going to overlook your bedrooms. We're getting the applicant saying it's not. So can you give us your version, please?
I think there might be a misunderstanding over where 24B Smith Terrace is. It might be that the applicant's agent has looked on Google Maps, which shows the wrong location and makes it look like it's on the south side of Smith Terrace in line with 49 Radnor Walk, but it isn't. It's actually on the north side of Smith Terrace, right opposite the extremely narrow street. It's only 1.5 car widths wide at that point, and if you brought up some images, you would see that, or I could point to it on the map. The proposed terrace comes almost up to the edge, or right up to the edge, in a kind of in a north easterly side of 49 Radnor Walk, and it looks, if you're sitting looking northeasterly, yes, if you're sitting on the roof terrace looking northwesterly, you look straight over into my bedroom window and slightly down into my daughter's bedroom window. So yes, move the cursor just to the northwest, to the northwest. There, that's it. That is 24B Smith Terrace. The main south aspect bedroom windows are just to the right and below the cursor now. And the roof terrace is right opposite. And that, you could almost reach out and sort of, grab a beer or something from someone on the roof terrace, the proposed roof terrace. It's extremely narrow there.
Thank you. You've got, thanks for setting that out. Gerald.
Can I say something on the terrace as well?
Does that satisfy your question on this? Because we... Yeah.
Whether there was a discrepancy in which house we're talking about, property we're talking about. So maybe I can call Ronnie.
Yes, a good idea. Yeah, thank you.
Can we have the applicant's take on that, please? Actually, you need to talk to us, not to each other. Excuse me.
Claudia, it's to us.
Could you pull up the side elevation? Do you have that with you today? No. Okay, if you go back to the plans. Yeah, here. So you can see the main massing in a slightly darker grey. That is the existing building. And where the cursor is currently, so that is the proposed second floor extension with the terrace on top. Where the cursor is now is showing number 51's closet wing, and that has a terrace on top of it. So from the images that were submitted previously, it appears to me that the images that were taken only show directly below the cursor, which is on the first floor. They're not showing sort of that further over, which is set back by over a metre. I appreciate, obviously, it's,
My bedroom window is at second floor height.
Sam, sorry.
Councillor Retty, please. Thank you.
Just to the applicant, Ms. Taunton. Just checking. So, if the proposed extension was built, number 49 and 51, we were saying would be overlooking each other at the same sort of level.
So number 51 is directly next door to number 49. The rear elevation, the main rear elevation, would then be in line with each other, next to each other. The closet wing of number 51 would extend past that.
Yeah, so if both were standing close to the window, they can both see.
No, there's no windows on the side elevation.
On the side elevation,
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Right, shall we move to officers and just get to the bottom of this? Right, I think what we're wanting just to understand is how officers assess this. I mean, clearly, these buildings are very close to each other. There's a substantial degree of overlooking as well, as happens in these sort of corners and where roads intersect. So we're just trying to understand. It's not that things are going to be invisible, but what is the significance of the degree of overlooking and how officers balanced that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think firstly we acknowledge that the daylight sunlight assessment was updated. The officer, for the purposes of this addendum pack, spent the time with the updated report, which obviously did address the windows at number 24B, and assured me that it didn't alter the conclusions that were reached within the officer committee report. I think we obviously acknowledge that the proposed extension, there are no flank windows proposed, but I appreciate that we need to have made sure that we've carefully assessed the impact of the terrace on the bedroom windows on the other side of the road. I think what I would say on that is, I think on plan, it looks like there's sufficient distance, but I appreciate looking at aerial images in Google Maps, it definitely creates an appearance of being a lot closer. But I think on balance, officers, where they're considering the terrace, are quite comfortable that it wouldn't result in a significant level of harm to increase in noise disturbance and disturbance to neighbouring properties. The increase in the size of the terrace is therefore overall not considered to be harmful. But, I appreciate that we've heard from the neighbour here on the impacts that it might cause. But that's a conclusion the officer did reach based on their assessment.
Can I say something on the terrace? I tried to interject before.
First of all, we're now in the conversation with officers, so that particular part of talking directly to you is over. I think, Ms. Chung, did you want to?
I just wanted to add a little bit further that obviously in the report there's some discussion around living conditions with regards to the roof terrace in particular. It does note there is an existing one on the main roof of 49 Radwell Walk, and there are other examples of roof terraces in the immediate locality. So there is some acceptance that there is a degree of mutual overlooking that comes from a very tight built-up relationship between houses that comes from windows facing each other, particularly with Smith Terrace being so narrow. I just wanted to make that point that there are existing developments to bear in mind. Also, with any terrace, there would normally be some form of boundary treatment for safety. It is an option that if members were concerned this evening about increased overlooking from the new roof terrace, or the enlarged part rather, the additional element that you may want to consider some form of boundary treatment that would certainly it would increase the amount of screening on that flank elevation that 24B Smith Terrace would look onto, but it would address the overlooking point because it wouldn't be able to, it's just an option for you to consider in your
and that's something which we're pursuing. But I think the crucial thing, you mentioned Radnor Walk, the crucial thing here is that at this very particular point in Smith Street, the street narrows. And that's the issue, I think, that maybe in Radnor Walk or maybe in the main part of Smith Street, this wouldn't be quite the issue it is, but here it's very narrow.
Oh no, I appreciate it is a sensitive relationship with those properties, yeah.
So could I ask Councillor Hargreaves, is it sort of a physical screening that would make a difference? Obviously, if there's noise, then there are ways in which noise gets controlled. But is there, as Mr. Jung mentioned, at a boundary treatment, we can condition that screening needs to be set up that should aim to mitigate any risk of harm from, or the degree of harm of overlooking.
It's a view. I mean, I wasn't picking up from the objector about noise or disturbance as such, except the overlooking. So if we go ahead with this, then whatever we can build in to stop the overlooking would help.
As I suggested, it is something for you to consider. I think there just has to be a careful balance between screening that prevents overlooking, but then in and of itself can be problematic in terms of overbearing and sense of enclosure.
It is quite difficult because to reduce the harm, there are some cases in which the terrace has been, the accessible bit of the terrace has been set back so that people can't get as close. But there's no way that we can design that tonight. Comment or question from Tim?
The other question around then is, if you go for screening, does that have a further impact on sunlight for the other flats around it? So I have questions around that then as well. I'm not sure screening would be the way forward, in my opinion.
Another option, late in the night for options, but I don't believe we visited the neighbouring property. I'm sure they can nod yes or no whether we have at 24B or 51, and it might be that members would like to defer the application this evening to allow further site visits to take place so that we can fully understand, I guess, the complexity of the relationship.
I think that this at this moment, at this late hour, that is that feels like something that is welcomed suggestion, and hopefully looking at objectors and applicants, maybe this is the best bottomed out with a physical view, because we can't judge it from here. Okay, so do we need a proposal to defer?
Yes.
Okay, right. I propose, Councillor Hargreaves seconds, to defer. Those in favour of deferring? That's all. That's agreed to defer. So just in case anyone's unclear, nothing has been decided other than it's not going to be decided tonight, so that visits can take place. Thank you, everyone, in this bit, because we've got more cases to go, for being the last and for bearing with us. It's difficult for us to concentrate on so many different things, but all the contributions were helpful for a site visit. Yeah.
Further assessment.
And further assessment. Okay, good. So that is that case deferred.
Could I ask quickly just what the conclusion is to that? Would it then come back to another committee?
I think you'd pick it up with officers for that. We're just asking for officers to be able to make a full assessment and negotiate, but we're not making any further rulings tonight about what happens next.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Well done.
Sorry,
all right.
Sorry, Chair. Could I get
sorry,
a 30-minute comfort break, a 30-second comfort break, if that's okay?
We could do. We have there are 4 to go. So, all right. Quick break, everyone. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We're resuming now with 95 Lansdowne Road, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I begin my presentation, I would draw members' attention to the addendum report. This includes an additional objection received in the recirculation of a letter by Croft Structural and Civil, dated the 15th of October. There is also an additional response to the representations from the agent that's been received and appended to the addendum, and that is dated the 5th of September. I would also just draw members' attention to the pack. So within the recommended conditions, which is section 9 of the officer's report, there's a recommended condition 1 which relates to flood risk assessment and sustainable drainage strategy. That is not proposed, so that is proposed to be omitted, and then condition 1 would start at the time limit. Condition 2 would be the compliance of the approved drawings. That reflects the recommended conditions referred to within the report. Recommended condition 10 does relate to surface water drainage and flood risk assessment, and that's included within the pack before you. So there's a slight error that recommended condition 1 in your pack relates to flood risk assessment and sustainable drainage strategy, but that's not needed, and it's referred to as condition 10, which is a later condition. Just wanted to draw members' attention to that. Apologies for any confusion. So the application site relates to number 95 Lansdowne Road, which is a 3-storey property with a lower ground floor located on the northern side of Lansdowne Road, which can be seen identified in the red on the slide. The site is located within Flood Zone 1 and within the Holland Park Critical Drainage Area. This application was deferred by the Planning Applications Committee on the 10th of June 2025. The committee's concerns related to the lack of information on the history of the flooding in the area and an assessment of the flood risk to neighbouring properties. This application seeks planning permission for the construction of a basement beneath the existing building, alterations at roof level, and an extension within the lower ground floor at front garden level, and other associated works. There has been no changes to the proposed built form since the previous committee meeting. On the slide before you, it just shows the existing and proposed section. I thought this was helpful to show the location of the proposed basement fully beneath the existing footprint of the building, and the alterations at roof level in this location here. In response to the concerns from members raised last time, the applicant has submitted a supplementary flood risk assessment and a revised drainage strategy. Those documents can just be seen on the slide. Given the nature of this additional information, a formal reconsultation with neighbouring residents was undertaken. The supplementary information outlined has been carefully considered by officers, including with the Council's flooding and drainage officer, and officers are satisfied that the proposal is acceptable and demonstrates compliance with the relevant policies, and that there will be no material impact on the risk of flooding elsewhere as a result of this development. That is set out fully within the deferred report within section 2.13 onwards. Overall, officers are satisfied, as mentioned, that the submitted flood risk assessment has provided a detailed assessment of the risks of flooding to the property, has noted the existing flood risks, and has identified mitigation measures to account for these risks. Conditions are recommended to secure the implementation of the flood risk measures, namely securing a sewer flooding protection from the property, which is recommended condition 11 for a positively pumped device. In relation to SUDS, the proposed mitigation or the proposed SUDS is proposed to be managed through a below-ground attenuation tank and permeable paving. These measures would result in a significant reduction in the speed and amount of water entering the local sewer network. The implementation of the proposed SUDS is recommended to be secured by way of a condition, which is recommended condition 10, which I referred to earlier in my presentation. It is noted that the additional representations, or that there have been additional representations made following the further consultation, including a statement prepared by cross-structural engineers. All the representations are included within the pack and within the addendum report, and these have been carefully considered as part of the application and assessed within the officer's report, again, specifically paragraph 2.13 onwards. In conclusion, officers are satisfied that the submitted material has provided a detailed assessment of the risk of flooding to the property, has noted the existing flood risks, and has identified mitigation measures to account for these risks. The submitted material has also considered historic flooding in the vicinity of the property. Therefore, the proposal is acceptable to demonstrate compliance with the relevant policies of the development plan. As such, officers' recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to those recommended conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. I was on this previous committee, which was deferred, and there were obviously a lot of points that were brought up by objectors. But as it says in 1.1, it was particularly the lack of information about historic flooding, and that's what led to the other reports being issued. But I think in your summary towards the end, you made the sort of important point for us is that there is nothing, as much as residents are very worried about this application, there is nothing that officers have picked up after careful consideration of the additional report that puts this in contravention or against our policies. And so it remains a policy compliant, although not very welcome by residents, we should say, but a policy compliant application. Is that where we've got to really for this decision?
That's correct. So officers have, as I've mentioned, reviewed the updated material, which has accounted for those more recent flooding events. Officers are satisfied that there wouldn't be a material impact or a material risk to the increase of flooding within the site or the neighbouring properties, and therefore officers are comfortable with the scheme in relation to its impacts to flooding and drainage, subject to those recommended conditions as well.
Understood. Questions from councillors? I think we probably got to the same point. Are we ready to come to a decision? Yeah, all right. So based on what we've heard, following the deferral on the extra reports, the officer recommendation is to grant as policy compliant. Can I see those in favour? Those against? Okay, so that is... Okay, so that's 3 in favour, 1 abstain, 1 against. Is that a good summary? Yeah, all right. Thank you everybody. For that, number 14 Ladbroke Square, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I would draw members' attention to the addendum report and the additional objections received. We have also made an amendment to section 8.2 to include these additional objections and also an officer response. The application relates to flat 2 within 14 Ladbroke Square. Planning permission is sought for the creation of a roof terrace at first floor level above the existing rear extension. The proposal will also include the installation of the black metal railings and decking and the lowering of a sill and the installation of a door to access the terrace. There aren't any speakers on this case, but I have included just a few slides just to show members the location. So this is the existing and proposed side elevation, so members can note the location of the terrace in this area here. It has been set back from the rear elevation to try and mitigate some impacts on any views upwards into a bedroom window, which has been referenced as part of the objections provided. And just to show members where that window is in relation to the proposed terrace. So the proposed terrace is shown on the right-hand image with the red circle. The bedroom window is located directly above where some photographs have been provided from, and the terrace would be located in this area here. The recommendation before members this evening is to grant planning permission subject to the recommended conditions. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Are councillors happy to ask any questions? No. Okay. Are you looking at me, Councillor Retty? No. Okay. No one is looking at me for questions, so I think that stands in front of us. We've considered what's there. I think we're ready to move to a decision on this. Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? Ladbroke Square is granted. Markham Square, please.
Thank you, Chairman. There's no speakers on this case either, but I've included a couple of slides just for members' benefit. This proposal relates to fairly extensive works, hence me including a couple of slides. Here we have the site location plan. This application site comprises a 4-storey mid-terrace property arranged from a lower ground floor to second floor with an existing mansard roof extension. The property lies within the Chelsea Conservation Area. Here we have an aerial view, and here we have the extent of the existing rear elevations. And here we have the front elevations, and here we have the existing front and rear elevations, existing sections, and here we have the proposed front and rear elevations. I'm sure that that's right. So the, bear with me a second. Oh yeah. So the proposal is for the demolition and replacement of the existing closet wing and demolition of bay structure to rear, shown in the photos just now, provision of infill extensions, demolition and replacement of existing mansard roof, and other works, including installation of new air conditioning units at roof level and fenestration alterations. So very generally, the key consideration with this proposal relates to the demolition in the conservation area. Policy CD4 obviously explains that it would need to be demonstrated that part of the building or structure makes no positive contribution to the character and appearance of the area. So while officers acknowledge that there is substantial demolition, particularly to the rear proposed here, the existing elevations are considered to be largely unsympathetic later additions, which, due to their choice of materials and overall design, make little to no contribution to the character and appearance of the Chelsea Conservation Area. And their removal actually represents an opportunity to improve the architectural quality of the building and better response to its surrounding area and the host building. In relation to the mansard, this would closely reflect a traditional mansard extension. The height would not project beyond the height of a similar mansard roof additions at adjacent properties. The closet wing replacement to replace the existing bay structure would be designed in materials to match the host dwelling and is considered to be appropriate and probably an improvement to the existing situation. The height of the replacement closet wing would not extend above the general height within the wider terrace group and would not extend in depth beyond the rear building line of this particular group. It's considered this would preserve the character and appearance of the existing dwelling. The infill extension at lower ground floor level are similar to existing extensions in the locality. It's considered to be in keeping, therefore, with local context. It's in a discrete location and would have minimal visual impact. The proposed air conditioning units are not considered to have any adverse impact on public or private views from neighbouring properties, as they would not be readily noticeable from the street or any nearby windows as assessed by officers, but we've included a condition to secure details of its enclosure. We've also carefully assessed the extent of window replacements here, and also those on the front elevation to ensure that the character and appearance of the group of buildings is preserved along with the conservation area setting. We've included conditions to ensure they're timber-framed, sliding sash and design. Overall, officers have considered that the proposal would result in an acceptable proposal that would continue to preserve the character and appearance of the building, the terrace group and the wider conservation area. It's not considered to result in significant harm by way of overlooking or overbearing or loss of light to neighbouring properties. And just again on the AC units, officers are satisfied that an acoustic assessment's been provided and is considered to be satisfactory, subject to conditions by environmental health officers, and it wouldn't really to impacts on noise and disturbance. So overall, this is recommended for approval.
Yeah.
Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I know it's a large amount of work that's going on, and normally there has to be some positive aspects to justify this amount of work, but that's the officer assessment. I also note that even though there isn't a new basement being constructed, there is a CTMP, given the amount of material coming in and out. That is a very useful thing to consider, because it's a tight square, and it's going to be difficult to coordinate all of that. So, any questions from councillors? No. All right. Well, we're saying it's big. There are reasons for it, and making sure that it's as well managed as possible. All right. Recommendation is to grant. Those in favour, please show. That is Markham Square is granted. Final application, a condition discharge for Cheney Walk.
Thank you, Chairman. Finally, to conclude today's agenda, we have a discharge condition, 106 Cheney Walk. This is in relation to an advertisement consent approved earlier in the year for replacement of 2 LED digital advertising displays, and the proposal will include a living wall. So essentially, this discharge condition relates to condition 12, which requested details of the living green walls. Officers have assessed the submission. We're quite happy with what they've proposed here. We've obviously set out in the report for you the wording of the condition, and they have included a maintenance schedule and associated planting schedule for the living green wall, and we're quite happy with the detail that they provided. The proposed species are considered to be appropriate, and we're quite happy with the schedule that they've submitted in connection to this condition. So we're recommending approval of this, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I think we're ready to come to a decision on this. The recommendation is to approve this discharge condition. Those in favour? That is agreed, and thank you everyone for your time and attention this evening. Bye.